The greatest victory is that which requires no battle. Tesu. War is not just a military conflict fought with armies and weapons. It is a constant, unseen force shaping every aspect of your life. In business, power struggles, relationships, and personal growth. War is being waged daily. Every decision you make is either a strategic move toward power or a misstep toward defeat. Your ability to outthink, outmaneuver, and outlast determines whether you win or become a casualty of stronger forces. Yet, most people go through life blind to this reality. They believe hard work and good intentions alone will guarantee success. They assume fairness exists. But the world is governed by strategy, not fairness. History does not remember the well-meaning, it remembers the victorious. But what if you could rewrite your fate? What if you had access to the same timeless war strategies used by history's greatest rulers? Business tycoons and military geniuses, strategies designed not just to win battles, but to dominate the game of life. The hidden rules of power and victory. This book is your strategic war manual, step-by-step guide to gaining unshakable mental toughness, strategic dominance, and absolute control over any battlefield you face. You will learn how to win before the battle begins. Master psychological warfare, deception, and preemptive strikes. How to neutralize threats before they arise. Identify weaknesses in competitors, adversaries, and even in yourself. How to weaponize patience and misdirection. Learn why the best moves are often the ones no one sees coming. How to turn losses into ultimate victories. The most powerful generals in history turn setbacks into their greatest advantages. How to rule without resistance. The greatest victory is not in battle, but in making your dominance unquestioned. Every move you make in life is either a step toward power or a surrender to defeat. This book will ensure you never step blindly again. If you are ready to think like a general, act like a ruler, and move like a master strategist, turn the page. The war has already begun. Strategy 1. Declare war on your inner weaknesses. If there is no enemy within, the enemy outside can do us no harm. By African proverbs, first war is always within, before you can conquer any external battle, whether in business, competition, or influence. You must first defeat your greatest enemy, yourself. Self-doubt, fear, laziness, procrastination. These forces sabotage success before it even begins. They are the assassins of ambition. Most people fail not because of external forces, but because of internal ones, their own hesitation, lack of discipline, or unwillingness to push through resistance. History's most dominant warriors understood this. They were not born stronger than their enemies. They simply trained themselves to be unbreakable. The power of ruthless self-discipline. Consider Alexander the Great, one of history's most legendary conquerors. He did not become a ruler of empires because he was the strongest or wealthiest. He became unstoppable because he was willing to endure what others could not. While his enemies relaxed, he trained. While others hesitated, he acted. While others sought comfort, he embraced hardship. Meanwhile, the rulers he defeated were undone, not by his armies, but by their own complacency. The lesson: your greatest victories will come not from overpowering others, but from overpowering your own limitations. The 3 enemies within, the forces that are sabotaging you. 1. Fear. Fear paralyzes action. It convinces you to wait, to hesitate, to avoid risk. But hesitation is defeat. The only way to kill fear is through action, moving forward before you feel ready to self-doubt. The voice in your head that says, "You're not good enough." It's a lie. The greatest generals, leaders, and empire builders all started as nobodies. Confidence isn't given, it is built. 3. Comfort and complacency. Comfort is the silent assassin of greatness. The moment you choose ease over effort, you hand victory to your enemies, whether those enemies are competitors, rivals, or your own weaknesses. How to wage war against yourself. Step 1. Identify your weakest link. Be brutally honest. Where are you failing? What is the one thing that, if eliminated, would unlock your success? Step 2. Attack it relentlessly. Weakness does not disappear on its own. If you lack discipline, force yourself into disciplined habits. If you fear rejection, expose yourself to rejection daily until it loses its power over you. Step 3. Build an unbreakable mindset. Adopt the mindset of warriors. Pain is temporary. Struggle is the price of greatness. Comfort is the enemy of power. Final war strategy: train like a conqueror. The first war you must win is against yourself. If you can command yourself, you can command the world. Victory begins in the mind. Start today. Declare war on your weaknesses, and you will find yourself unconquerable. Next strategy preview. The grand strategy: how to see 10 moves ahead. The next strategy: you'll learn why most people fail, not because they're weak, but because they think too small. You will discover how to predict your enemy's moves before they make them. Plan long-term dominance and always stay 10 steps ahead. Turn the page. The war continues. Strategy 2. The grand strategy: see 10 moves ahead. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. By Sun Tzu. The difference between amateurs and masters. Most people live their lives reactively, making decisions based on immediate circumstances rather than long-term strategy. They fight battles without understanding the war. This is why they fail. Great strategists, whether in war, business, or life, ever act without a larger plan in place. They are thinking 10 moves ahead while their enemies are stuck in the present. The fatal mistake of short-term thinking. In 1805, Napoleon Bonaparte faced a seemingly impossible challenge. He was outnumbered, surrounded, and facing the combined forces of Austria and Russia at the Battle of Austerlitz. His enemies assumed they had him trapped. They planned their attack based on what they saw in the moment, not realizing that Napoleon had already anticipated every move. He lured them into a false sense of victory, allowing them to believe he was weak. Then, when they struck, he sprung his traps, mashing their armies and securing one of the greatest victories in military history. What did Napoleon understand that his enemies didn't? Short-term thinking leads to predictable, emotional, and reactionary decisions. Long-term strategy allows you to manipulate the battlefield, forcing your enemies to play by your rules. The lesson: if you want to dominate, you must think ahead, not just to your next move, but to the moves after that. The 3 levels of strategic thinking. 1. Tactical thinking, amateur level. The first move. This is what most people do. They react to immediate problems without considering the bigger picture. A company slashes prices to beat competitors, but destroys its own long-term profits. A leader fires a difficult employee but loses the team's respect in the process. A chess player takes a free pawn lead to realize too late it was a trap. Tactical thinking focuses on short-term victories at the cost of long-term success. It is how weak players operate. To operational thinking intermediate level, the next few moves, a step above amateurs. These people consider the next few moves before acting. A business owner invests in marketing today, knowing it will take 6 months to generate customers. A fighter takes a hit on purpose to set up a knockout punch later. A politician loses a debate on purpose to appear humble, then wins voters' sympathy. This level of thinking is better, but not enough to dominate point 3 grand strategy thinking master level, controlling the entire game at this level. You don't just play the game, you design it. You anticipate multiple scenarios, ensuring that every possible move benefits you. You let enemies think they are winning, only to trap them later. You create situations where others must react to you, never the other way around. This is how true power is built. This is how empires rise while others fall. How to see 10 moves ahead. The 3-step method. Step 1. Always reverse engineer the end goal. Ask yourself, what is my ultimate victory? Not just the next step, but the final destination. Then, work backward what needs to happen to reach that goal. Example, a young lawyer wants to become a judge. Amateur, works hard and hopes to be noticed. Intermediate, networks with judges and politicians. Master strategist, studies how judges are appointed. Aligns with powerful mentors and positions. Themselves years in advance. The lesson: always start with the end in mind. Step 2. Anticipate every possible obstacle. Most people fail because they only prepare for success, not resistance. You must predict where things will go wrong before they happen. Example, a CEO launching a new product must ask, how will competitors respond? What legal challenges might arise? What if my plan fails? What is my backup strategy? The best strategists expect problems and have solutions ready before they occur. Step 3. Control the battlefield. Force others to react to you. The final level of strategy is making your enemies, competitors, or opponents play your game. Example, Amazon versus Walmart. When Amazon began rising, Walmart reacted by slashing prices. Amazon, however, had no intention of competing on price alone. Instead, they focused on dominating logistics, data, and customer convenience. By the time Walmart realized Amazon's real strategy, it was too late. If you control the battlefield, your enemies will always be one step behind you. The war. Strategy for thinking 10 moves ahead. One plan backward from victory. Define the end goal first. To anticipate resistance before it happens. Expect problems and have solutions. 3. Control the battlefield. Make others react to you. Those who think ahead rule the world. Those who react are ruled by them. Next strategy preview. Strategy 3. Turn chaos into opportunity. In the next strategy, we'll explore how crisis, uncertainty, and destruction can be used as powerful weapons for growth, dominance, and reinvention. Turn the page. The war continues. Strategy 3. Turn chaos into opportunity. In the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity. By Sun Tzu. Why the weak fear chaos and the strong exploit it? Most people panic when chaos strikes. They see disorder, uncertainty, and destruction as threats, something to be feared, avoided, or suppressed. This is why they fail. But masters of strategy think differently to them. Chaos is fuel. It is a tool to be wielded, a force to be manipulated, and an opportunity to seize when everyone else is blinded by fear. The power of controlled chaos. In 49 BC, Caesar faced a crisis that would make or break his empire. The Roman Senate turned against him, declaring him an enemy of the state. The republic was collapsing into civil war. Most leaders would have hesitated, sought peace, or waited for things to settle. Not Caesar. He embraced the chaos. Instead of retreating, he made a bold, unpredictable move, marching his army across the Rubicon River, directly into Rome. This was an act of war, an irreversible decision. His enemies were paralyzed, unable to respond fast enough. While others hesitated, he took control. Within months, Caesar turned a collapsing republic into an empire with himself at the center of it. Lesson: chaos is not a threat. It is an opening for power. How the greatest leaders thrive in chaos. History's most dominant figures, Caesar, Napoleon, Rockefeller, Elon Musk, share one thing in common. They do not resist chaos. They use it. Chaos confuses weak players. But for those who understand how to control it, chaos destroys competitors, creates leverage, and accelerates dominance. Here's how. 1. When others freeze. You must act decisively. In a crisis, most people hesitate. They wait, analyze, or react emotionally. The strategic mind does the opposite, seizing control before others can respond. Example: the 2008 financial crisis. While most companies cut costs and panicked, Warren Buffett poured billions into investments when the market was collapsing. He understood a fundamental truth. Chaos makes assets cheaper, and fortunes are built in these moments. Years later, his bets paid off, making him one of the richest people in history. The lesson: the moment others freeze, you strike. To use chaos to reshape the game in your favor. Chaos reshuffles the deck, wiping out old rules, structures, and hierarchies. This is your chance to rewrite the rules in your favor. Example: the rise of Amazon. In the early 2000s, the retail world was collapsing. Brick-and-mortar stores were shutting down. Amazon saw this chaos as an opportunity, doubling down on e-commerce, logistics, and cloud computing while competitors struggled. Amazon became the most dominant retailer in history. Chaos is not an obstacle. It is your chance to redefine the battlefield. 3. Manufacture chaos to weaken competitors. If there is no chaos, create it. Force others into uncertainty while you remain in control. Example: Napoleon's psychological warfare. Before battle, Napoleon would spread false rumors, convincing enemy generals they were outnumbered, outmatched, or betrayed. This created fear, paranoia, and confusion, leading enemies to make terrible decisions. By the time the real battle began, they were already mentally defeated. When others are distracted by uncertainty, they cannot focus on attacking you. The war strategy for turning chaos into power. 1. When chaos strikes, act first, while others hesitate. Seize the moment. Those who act first control the battlefield. 2. Use chaos to rewrite the rules in your favor. When systems collapse, build new ones that benefit you. Turn disorder into leverage. 3. Create controlled chaos to weaken enemies. Force competitors into uncertainty. Make them react while you remain in control. Most fear chaos. The powerful create empires from it. Next strategy preview. Strategy for a peer week. Strike hard. In the next strategy, We'll uncover the hidden power of deception, misdirection, and surprise attacks, how the greatest minds in history pretended to be weak before delivering devastating victories. The war continues. Turn the page. Strategy 4. Appear weak, strike hard. All warfare is based on deception. By Sun Tzu. Why the strongest warriors pretend to be weak. Most people make the mistake of showing their full strength too soon. They believe power must be displayed openly, but true masters of strategy know better. The greatest warriors hide their power. They lull enemies into a false sense of security. They appear weak, distracted, or even incompetent. It is time to strike with overwhelming force. This is how small forces defeat giants. It is how underdogs destroy empires. It is how leaders send businesses crush competitors without them even realizing it. The lesson: never reveal your true strength until the moment of attack. How the greatest minds use deception to win wars throughout history. The most legendary victories have come from appearing weak only to strike when the enemy least expected it. 1. The Battle of Cannae 216 BC. How Hannibal crushed Rome in one of the most devastating defeats in Roman history. Hannibal, a Carthaginian general, faced an army twice his size. Rome was certain of victory. They had more men, more weapons, and more resources, but Hannibal tricked them. He arranged his army in a seemingly weak formation, placing his weakest soldiers in the center. The Romans saw an easy target and charged straight ahead. As soon as they advanced, Hannibal's stronger forces closed in from the sides, surrounding and annihilating the Roman army. Lesson: when enemies think you are weak, they make reckless mistakes. Point to Apple's strategy: losing before winning big. In the early 1990s, Apple was losing the computer war. Microsoft dominated. Apple seemed like a failing company. Then, Apple did something unexpected. They didn't fight Microsoft head-on. Instead, they focused on something else, designing the iPod, iTunes, and eventually the iPhone, while Microsoft was too focused on computers. Apple secretly built the next generation of technology. When Apple finally launched the iPhone in 2007, it destroyed competitors who never saw it coming. They appeared weak. They struck hard. And they won. How you can use this strategy to gain power. This strategy applies everywhere in business, negotiations, and even personal power plays. 1. Hide your strength until it's time to strike. If people underestimate you, they won't prepare for your attack. In war, generals fake weakness to bait the enemy into a trap. In business, entrepreneurs play small before launching a dominant move. In life, the most successful people don't announce their next move, they just execute. Real-life example: Tesla versus traditional automakers. For years, Tesla seemed like a niche company. Big car manufacturers ignored them, thinking they were irrelevant. But Tesla secretly developed industry-changing battery technology. By the time competitors realized it was too late, Tesla had already dominated the electric vehicle market. Lesson: the less attention your enemy gives you, the easier it is to win. Point to let others feel confident, then take everything. If your opponent thinks they're winning, they lower their guard. In negotiations, let the other side believe they are in control till you reveal your winning move. In competition, let rivals feel comfortable, then outmaneuver them when they least expect it. Real-life example: Muhammad Ali's rope-a-dope strategy. Ali would lean against the ropes, letting opponents punch him, pretending to be exhausted. When they became tired from attacking, he exploded with counterattacks and knocked them out. Lesson: the best time to strike is when your enemy thinks they have already won. 3. Bait your enemy into overcommitting. Make the opposition attack too soon, too hard, or too recklessly, then counter with devastating force. Example: the Gulf War 1991. Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, expecting the U.S. to hesitate. The U.S. pretended to negotiate and delay, when Iraq had fully committed its forces in Kuwait. The U.S. launched an overwhelming surprise attack. Iraq's army was destroyed in days. Lesson: if you make an opponent overextend, they collapse under their own weight. The war strategy for crushing enemies with deception: 1. Appear weaker than you are. Let enemies underestimate you. Make them feel overconfident to let them attack. FIRSTA reckless opponent is an easy opponent. Wait for them to overcommit. 3. Strike when they are most vulnerable. Attack when their guard is down. Make them realize their mistake too late. Next strategy preview. Strategy 5. Create uncertainty and confusion. In the next strategy, we'll dive into why keeping your opponents confused, uncertain, and off balance is the ultimate advantage in war, business, and power. Turn the page. The war continues. Strategy 5. Create uncertainty and confusion. Keep your opponent guessing, and they will make mistakes. Make them doubt their own strategy, and they will collapse before the battle even begins. Bisanzuhi uncertainty is a weapon of power. Most people believe that clarity wins wars. They think that success comes from being direct, predictable, and transparent. But in reality, the greatest victories come from confusion. When your enemy is uncertain, they hesitate. When they hesitate, they make mistakes. When they make mistakes, they are already defeated. The lesson: a confused enemy is a powerless enemy. If you can keep them guessing, you can make them destroy themselves. How confusion has won wars and built empires. 1. Napoleon's genius. It's the art of misdirection. Napoleon Bonaparte was one of the greatest military strategists in history. But he didn't win because of superior numbers or weapons. He won because he was a master of confusion. In battle after battle, Napoleon used fake attacks, false retreats, and misleading troop movements to make his enemies second guess every decision. One of his greatest tricks. He would make his enemies believe he was weak or disorganized, then suddenly strike in full force. Lesson: the moment your opponent doubts what is real, they are already defeated. To how Google crushed Microsoft by creating uncertainty. In the early 2000s, Microsoft dominated the tech world. They were the undisputed kings of software, and no one believed they could be challenged. Then Google entered the game, but instead of directly competing with Microsoft, they created confusion. They released free tools, Gmail, Google Docs, that made Microsoft's paid software look outdated. They kept their business plans secret, forcing Microsoft to waste resources chasing rumors. They constantly changed their products, making it impossible for Microsoft to predict their next move. By the time Microsoft realized what was happening, Google had already built an empire. Lesson: if your competitors don't know what you're doing, they can't stop you. How you can use this strategy to win in life and business. 1. Keep people guessing. Don't let them read you. Never reveal your full intentions. People know what you're thinking. They can prepare against you. In business, if you're launching a new product, Keep your plans secret until the last moment. In negotiations, if someone expects you to react emotionally, stay calm and unpredictable. In competition, if people assume you'll take one approach, change your strategy and catch them off guard. Example: Amazon's surprise attack strategy. Amazon spent years acting like an online bookstore. Then suddenly, they expanded into everything electronics, groceries, cloud computing. Competitors never saw it coming, and by the time they reacted, Amazon had already taken over multiple industries. Lesson: the less predictable you are, the more control you have. Point: to spread misinformation and create distractions. If your competitors are chasing false leads, they aren't stopping you. Example: World War II, Operation Bodyguard. Before the D-Day invasion, the Allies tricked Germany into thinking the attack would happen in a completely different location. They used fake radio messages, dummy tanks, and even a dead body with false invasion plans to confuse the Nazis. Germany fell for the deception, and when the real invasion happened, they were completely unprepared. Lesson: if your enemy is looking in the wrong direction, they won't see the real threat coming. 3. Control the narrative. Make others doubt themselves. When people question their own decisions, they lose confidence, and confidence is everything. In war, business, and life. Example: Steve Jobs' psychological warfare. Steve Jobs was famous for creating confusion among competitors and employees alike. He would constantly change his mind, make people doubt their own ideas, and force them to second-guess themselves. By keeping everyone on edge, he ensured that no one ever felt comfortable except him. Lesson: if you control the uncertainty, you control the game. The war strategy for creating maximum confusion. 1. Stay unpredictable. Never let anyone know your full plan. Keep your competitors, enemies, and even allies guessing. To spread false trails, misdirect others so they chase fake opportunities. Use misinformation to control what people focus on. 3. Make people doubt themselves. Create uncertainty so your opponents hesitate. When they lose confidence, they make mistakes, and that's when you strike. Next strategy preview. Strategy 6. Occupy the moral high ground. In the next strategy, we'll reveal how to gain absolute power by appearing morally superior even when you are ruthlessly playing the game of war. Turn the page. The battle continues. Strategy 6. Occupy the moral high ground. People don't follow the strongest leader. They follow the one who appears the most righteous. Why morality is a power play. Most people believe power is about strength, strategy, and intelligence. But history proves that moral positioning is one of the most effective weapons of war. When you claim the moral high ground, your enemies look corrupt. Even if they are not, people rally behind you, believing you are fighting for justice. You gain the power to destroy opposition without lifting a finger. The harsh truth. Morality is not about truth. It's about perception. Those who appear righteous win battles without ever fighting them. Lesson: if people see you as the hero, your enemies automatically become villains. How the moral high ground has won wars and built empires. 1. Gandhi versus the British Empire. A war won without violence. The British Empire controlled India through military force and political dominance. Their rules seemed unshakable. Then Gandhi changed the game. He didn't fight the British with weapons. He framed them as the oppressors and positioned himself as the leader of nonviolent resistance. Every time the British used violence, proved Gandhi's moral superiority. The result: The world turned against the British. India gained independence. Gandhi's moral strategy defeated an empire lesson. The moment your enemy looks evil, they have already lost to Apple. V's Microsoft. The battle for good versus evil. In the 1990s, Microsoft was the dominant tech company. Apple was struggling. Steve Jobs used morality to flip the script. He positioned Apple as the company for rebels, creatives, and dreamers. He framed Microsoft as the soulless corporate machine that only cared about profit. The result? Customers. Emotionally sided with Apple even if Microsoft had the better product. Apple's branding wasn't just about technology. It was a moral positioning battle. And it won. Lesson. If you frame yourself as the righteous underdog, people will fight for you. How you can use this strategy to win in life and business. 1. Control the narrative. Make yourself the hero. People don't follow logic. They follow stories. And the most powerful story is good versus evil. How to use this in business. Position yourself as the customer's defender against greedy corporations. In negotiations, make the other side look unfair or unreasonable. Toshio appeared justified in your demands. In leadership, show your team that you are fighting for their success, not just your own. Example, Tesla versus the auto industry. Tesla didn't just sell cars, they positioned themselves as the warriors against pollution and outdated car companies. By taking the moral high ground, they gained a loyal following even when they struggled financially. Lesson. When people see you as a cause, they fight for you. To force your enemy into the villain role. Your competition doesn't have to be evil people. Just need to believe they are. Example, the Civil Rights Movement. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't just ask for equal rights, he made segregationists look immoral by showing peaceful protesters being attacked on TV. He won public opinion. Racists looked like villains, and the movement gained unstoppable momentum. Lesson. When your enemy is seen as unjust, they lose by default. 3. Use ethics as a strategic weapon. Moral superiority gives you a license to act. Example, the U.S. War on Terror. After 9/11, the U.S. positioned itself as the protector of freedom against terrorism. This moral justification allowed them to launch wars that otherwise would have been controversial. Lesson. If people believe you are fighting for justice, they will accept almost any action you take. The war strategy for holding the moral high ground. 1. Frame yourself as the defender of a noble cause. Find a larger mission that makes you look like the hero. To make your enemies look corrupt or oppressive, expose their flaws. Even if they aren't obvious, let them destroy themselves through public perception. 3. Gain public support before you strike. If people believe you are fighting for justice, they will excuse your aggression. Next strategy preview. Strategy 7. Turn conflict into opportunity. In the next strategy, we'll reveal how to use every attack against you as fuel for even greater power. Turn the page. The war continues. Strategy 7. Turn conflict into opportunity. The strongest warriors are not those who avoid conflict, but those who turn it into fuel for their success. Why conflict is a goldmine for power. Most people fear conflict. They avoid confrontation, back down from fights, and try to maintain peace at all costs. But in war, business, and life, conflict is not an obstacle, it's an opportunity. When used correctly, conflict can Expose weaknesses in your enemies. Strengthen your position and rally supporters. Make you sharper, more resilient, and more respected. The harsh truth. Weak people avoid conflict. Average people get crushed by it. Elite strategists use it as a weapon. Lesson. When you stop fearing conflict and start using it, you gain an unfair advantage. How the greatest leaders used conflict to rise to power. 1. Abraham Lincoln. How he turned political enemies into allies. Lincoln's entire presidency was filled with conflict. Half the country hated him. His genius move. Instead of crushing his biggest rivals, he brought them into his government. He made his critics advisors, turning their attacks into fuel for his administration. By absorbing conflict instead of running from it, he turned enemies into assets. The result? Lincoln unified a divided nation. He became one of the greatest leaders in history. Lesson. Conflict can destroy make you invincible. The choice is yours. To Conor McGregor. How he used conflict to build a multi-million-dollar brand in the world of combat sports. McGregor is a master of weaponized conflict. His strategy. He picks fights publicly before his matches, creating massive hype. He insults his opponents, forcing them to emotionally overreact. He turns every conflict into a headline, making himself the center of attention. The result? Even people who hate him buy tickets just to see him lose. He makes millions whether he wins or loses because he controls the narrative. Lesson. If people are talking about you, you're winning. Conflict creates visibility. How you can use this strategy in life and business. 1. Reframe conflict as an advantage. Most people see conflict as a problem, but every conflict is a disguised opportunity. How to use this in business. When a competitor attacks you, use it as free publicity. In leadership, when there's a disagreement, use it to prove your strength and decisiveness. In negotiations, if someone challenges you, use it to showcase your expertise and gain respect. Example: Elon Musk versus billionaire critics. Every time a major CEO attacks Musk, he uses it to rally his supporters. Instead of backing down, he doubles down, making the critics look out of touch. Result? Musk's brand only grows stronger. Lesson. If someone attacks you, make sure you gain from it. Point to control the narrative. Make conflict work for you. Perception is everything. If you don't control the story, someone else will. Example: the 2020 U.S. election. Both candidates used conflict as a tool. Every attack was spun into a reason for their supporters to rally harder. The key strategy. Whoever controlled the narrative controlled the outcome. Lesson. Conflict doesn't destroy people. Bad storytelling does. Make sure your version of events wins. 3. Use conflict to test and strengthen your position. The strongest ideas, brands, and leaders are built through resistance. Example: Netflix versus Blockbuster. When Netflix first started, Blockbuster executives mocked them instead of folding. Netflix used the criticism to refine their model. Within years, Blockbuster was dead and Netflix dominated the industry. Lesson. If people challenge you, let it make you stronger. The war strategy for turning conflict into power. 1. Never avoid conflict. Use it. If someone challenges you, see it as a chance to prove your strength. Point to control the narrative. Make sure people see you as the smart, strategic player, not the victim. 3. Use attacks to strengthen your position. If someone doubts you, use it as fuel to improve and win. Next strategy preview. Strategy 8, create a sense of urgency. In the next strategy, we'll reveal how to make people take action immediately before they lose the chance forever. Turn the page. The battle continues. Strategy 8. Create a sense of urgency. The greatest victories are won not by those who hesitate, but by those who force action before their enemies can react. Why urgency is a weapon of power. Most people wait. They wait for the perfect moment. They hesitate, overthink, and let opportunities slip through their fingers. But winners, they create urgency. They force action, push decisions, and make things happen before their competitors even realize what's happening. When you create urgency, you control the pace of the game. Make others react to you instead of you reacting to them. Close deals, win battles, and seize power before anyone can stop you. Lesson: the battlefield doesn't reward the smartest, it rewards the fastest. How history's greatest strategist used urgency to win one Napoleon Bonaparte. How he moved faster than any army in Europe. Napoleon wasn't just a military genius, was a master of speed and urgency. While his enemies debated, hesitated, and planned, he struck first. His strategy: he forced battles before his enemies were ready. He attacked fast, moved fast, and kept them on their heels. He never let them breathe, forcing them to react on his terms. The result: Napoleon conquered almost all of Europe. Even against stronger armies, his speed made him unstoppable. Lesson: you move first, you dictate the game. Point to Steve Jobs. How? He created urgency to dominate the tech industry. Jobs knew that people don't act without urgency, so he created it. His strategy: he made every Apple product feel like a once-in-a-lifetime event. He set tight deadlines, forcing his team to produce groundbreaking innovations fast. He used limited-time offers, pre-orders, and scarcity to make customers rush to buy. The result: every iPhone launch became a worldwide event. Apple dominated the market while competitors struggled to keep up. Lesson: if people don't feel urgency, they won't act. Make them move now. How? To use this strategy in life and business: one, force deadlines so people take action now. Most people only act when they have to. Deadlines force them to make decisions. How to use this in sales: this offer expires in 24 hours. In leadership, we make a decision today, not next week. In negotiations, we can do this deal now or it's off the table. Example: Black Friday sales stores force urgency by creating a 24-hour discount window. People rush to buy because if they don't, they lose the opportunity. Lesson: if there's no deadline, there's no urgency to move first. Force others to react. The first mover controls the game. If you wait, you lose. Example: Elon Musk versus traditional car companionship. While other automakers debated and hesitated, Musk moved fast with Tesla. He launched electric cars before the industry was ready. By the time competitors reacted, Tesla owned the market. Lesson: hesitation is a weakness. Strike first. 3, make people feel like they're missing out. Scarcity and FOMO. Fear of missing out, FOMO, is a powerful force. Use it to make people act. Example: Rolex and luxury brands. Rolex limit supply on purpose. Customers feel urgency because if they wait, they might never get one. Result: people rush to buy, paying premium prices. Lesson: scarcity makes people desperate to act. The war strategy for creating urgency: 1, set deadlines. That Force action people delay unless there's a time limit. Give them one. To strike first, don't wait for permission. Speed kills hesitation. Move before others are ready. 3. Use scarcity and FOMO to make people active. Something feels rare or limited. People will fight for it. Next strategy. Preview. Strategy 9 sees the moral high ground in the next strategy. We'll reveal how to dominate by making yourself look like the righteous one even when you're playing dirty. Turn the page. The battle continues. Strategy 9. Seize the moral high ground. Victory is not just about winning the battle, about controlling the story of the battle. Why moral superiority is a strategic weapon. Wars are not just fought with swords and guns. They are fought with narratives, perception, and public opinion. The side that appears morally righteous has the power. Even the most ruthless actions can be justified if framed as necessary or just. Your enemy can be crushed if you first make them look like the villain. Lesson. The real battle is not just in the field, it's in the mind of the masses. Histories. Greatest masters of moral positioning. 1. Julius Caesar. How he framed his enemies as threats to Rome before Caesar crossed the Rubicon. He knew his biggest obstacle was not the enemy's army, it was public perception. If he was seen as a power-hungry warlord, he would be crushed. So what did he do? He framed his actions as a fight for the Roman people. He painted the Senate as corrupt elites trying to enslave Rome. He made himself the protector of the Republic, not the destroyer. The result? When he marched on Rome, he was welcomed as a hero. The people supported him even though he was seizing absolute power. Lesson. If you control the narrative, you control the battle. Point to Martin Luther King Jr. How he used moral authority to defeat oppression. MLK understood that public opinion was more powerful than any weapon. He didn't fight oppression with violence, he fought it with moral superiority. His strategy. He stayed nonviolent, forcing his enemies to expose their brutality. He made his movement about justice and equality. Universal values everyone could support. He turned his struggle into a moral war that the world couldn't ignore. The result. The civil rights movement won because it looked morally superior to its opponents. Even those who were neutral were forced to pick a side. Lesson. The world follows the side that looks like the hero. How to use this? Strategy in life and business. 1. Always frame yourself as the righteous one. People don't support power for power's sake. They support a cause. How to use this? In business, position your company as a force for good, not just profit. In leadership, make your actions about helping the team rather than personal gain. In conflicts, always appear as the one acting with integrity. Example: Elon Musk versus traditional media. 1. The media attacked Musk. He didn't just defend himself, he framed himself as fighting for free speech and innovation. Result? His supporters saw him as a hero even when he made controversial decisions. Lesson. If people see you as fighting for a noble cause, they'll support you no matter what. To make your enemies look like the villains. The public hates injustice. Use that to your advantage. Example: political campaigns. Politicians don't just promote themselves, they destroy their opponent's moral credibility. They use scandals, accusations, and emotional stories to make the other side look corrupt. The result? The opponent loses public trust even if their policies are good. Lesson. People don't just follow the strongest, they follow the most righteous. 3. Control the narrative before your enemies do. The first story people hear is usually the one they believe. Get ahead of the message. Example: tech companies versus regulators. When regulators attack big tech, companies don't just defend themselves, they frame their actions as protecting innovation and freedom. Result: instead of seeing them as greedy corporations, people see them as defenders of progress. Lesson: you shape the narrative first. You force others to react to you. The war strategy for seizing the moral high ground. 1. Always position yourself as fighting for a noble cause. People follow leaders who stand for something bigger than themselves. 2. Make your opponent look like the villain. If people see your enemy as corrupt, ruthless, or unjust, they'll support you by default. 3. Control the story before your enemy does. The first impression is the strongest. Shape the narrative before others twist it against you. Next strategy preview. Strategy 10. Turn weakness into strength. In the next strategy, we'll reveal how to use your flaws, disadvantages, and setbacks as weapons for victory. Turn the page, the battle continues. Strategy 10. Turn weakness into strength. Your greatest disadvantage can become your most powerful weapon if you know how to use it. Why weakness can be your greatest strategic advantage. Most people believe that strength wins battles and weakness leads to defeat. But history shows the opposite. The most successful warriors, leaders, and empires didn't win because they had all the advantages. They won because they knew how to turn their weaknesses into strengths. If you look vulnerable, your enemies will underestimate you. If you embrace your flaws, no one can use them against you. If you lack resources, you will become more creative, innovative, and unpredictable. Lesson: weakness is only a weakness if you let it be. History's greatest masters of this strategy. 1. Mahatma Gandhi, defeating an empire without an army. The British Empire controlled India with an iron fist. Gandhi had no weapons, no army, no political power. By all traditional standards, he was weak. So what did he do? He turned his lack of power into his greatest weapon. He used non-violent resistance to expose British cruelty. He made the British look like oppressors, while he stood as the symbol of moral superiority. The result? The world turned. Against Britain, India won independence. Gandhi became one of history's most influential figures, not because he had power, but because he used his perceived weakness as a strategic advantage. Lesson: when you have no weapons, your greatest weapon is perception. To Napoleon Bonaparte, using his small army to outsmart the enemy, Napoleon often faced larger, better equipped armies. Instead of seeing this as a weakness, he used his smaller forces as an advantage. His strategy: speed. He moved his troops faster than anyone expected. Deception. He made his enemies believe he was weaker than he was. Surprise attacks. He struck before his opponents could react. The result? He won battles he had no business winning. He conquered most of Europe. He became a legend in military strategy by turning a small army into a deadly force. Lesson: a smaller force is more flexible, unpredictable, and deadly if used correctly. How to use this strategy in life and business. 1. Use your weakness as a way to disarm your opponent. If people underestimate you, you can surprise them. Example: the underdog advantage in business. Startups don't have the money, resources, or brand power of big corporations, but their advantage: they are fast, adaptable, and willing to take risks that big companies won't. Result: startups disrupt. entire industries while giants struggled to keep up. Lesson: if people don't see you as a threat, you can move freely and strike when they least expect it, to make your struggles your brand. If you embrace your flaws, no one can use them against you. Example: Eminem versus his critics. When Eminem first entered the rap industry, people mocked him for being white, poor, and from a broken home. Instead of hiding from it, he owned it. He rapped about his struggles, making them his signature style. Result: he became one of the most successful artists in history. Lesson: what people see as your weakness can become your most powerful branding tool. 3. Use your lack of resources to become more creative. Having fewer resources forces you to think smarter. Example: the birth of Airbnb. The founders of Airbnb couldn't afford rent. Instead of seeing it as a weakness, they turned it into a billion-dollar business. They started renting out their own space, then realized others could do the same result. A global empire built from a simple problem. Lesson: constraints force innovation. Your biggest disadvantage can be the seed of your greatest success. The war strategy for turning weakness into strength. One turn being underestimated into an advantage. If people don't see you as a threat, they won't prepare for you. That's when you strike point to own your flaws so no one can use them against you. If you embrace your struggles, they become your strength. Point 3. Use limited resources to become more creative. When you have less, you think smarter, move faster, and adapt better. Next strategy preview. Strategy 11, trade space for time. In the next strategy, we'll reveal how letting go of short-term battles can win you the long-term war. Turn the page, the battle continues. Strategy 11, trade space for time. Sometimes the best way to win is to retreat strategically. Why letting go can be your greatest advantage. Most people think that victory means standing your ground, fighting for every inch and never backing down. But history proves otherwise. The greatest strategists knew that sometimes giving up space is the smartest way to buy time, exhaust the enemy, and prepare for a decisive counterattack. If you hold on too tightly, you become predictable. If you step back strategically, you force your opponent to overextend. If you let go of a battle today, you can win the war tomorrow. Lesson: winning is not about always pushing forward. It's about knowing when to step back. History's greatest masters of this strategy: 1. The Soviet Union versus Nazi Germany. World War II. In 1941, Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, the largest invasion in history. The German army, known for its speed and power, quickly advanced deep into Soviet territory. The Soviets could have tried to hold their ground and fight immediately, but instead, they retreated. They gave up land, but they gained time. They forced the Germans to stretch their supply lines. They let winter weaken the enemy before launching a counterattack. The result? The German army got trapped in the brutal Russian winter. They ran out of food, fuel, and resources. The Soviets crushed them and turned the tide of World War II. Lesson: sometimes giving up space is the best way to set a trap. Point to George Washington's brilliant retreat's American Revolution in 1776. The British Army was far stronger than Washington's forces. Instead of fighting them head-on, Washington retreated again and again. He avoided a decisive loss. He stretched the war out, tiring the British. He bought time to gather reinforcements and allies. The result: the British, frustrated and overextended, made mistakes. Washington eventually struck at the right moment, leading to American independence. Lesson: a smart retreat today can set you up for total victory tomorrow. How to use this strategy in life and business. 1. Let go of battles that don't matter. You don't have to fight every fight. Example: the Apple versus Microsoft war. In the 1990s, Apple was losing the computer war to Microsoft. Instead of fighting head-to-head, Steve Jobs shifted focus. He let go of competing in the PC market and instead built the iPod, iPhone, and iPad. Result: Apple became the most valuable company in the world. Lesson: sometimes abandoning the fight is the smartest move. To use delay to your advantage, patience can destroy stronger enemies. Example: Warren Buffett's investment strategy. Most investors jump into opportunities too fast. Buffett waits until the right moment to strike. He lets others make mistakes, then buys undervalued assets at the perfect time. Result: he became one of the richest men in history. Lesson: the longer you wait, the weaker your competition becomes. 3. Control the timing of your attacks. If you strike too early, you might waste your best opportunities. Example: Netflix versus Blockbuster. Netflix didn't rush into streaming. When it wasn't ready, they waited until internet speeds and technology improved. When the time was right, they strew-canned, crushed Blockbuster. Lesson: timing is everything. Wait, then dominate the war strategy for trading space for time. 1. Know when to retreat. You don't need to fight every battle. Let your enemy waste their energy first. Point 2. Let your opponent overextend. When they chase you, they become vulnerable. That's when you strike. Point 3. Control the tempo of the fight. Victory is not about speed. It's about attacking at the perfect moment. Next strategy preview. Strategy 12. Lose the battle. Win the war. In the next strategy, we'll reveal why short-term losses can be the secret to long-term domination. Turn the page. The war continues. Strategy 12. Lose the battle, win the war. Short-term losses can be the foundation of long-term victory. Why smart losers end up winning. Most people fear losing. They see a defeat as a failure. But the greatest strategists in history understood one thing: sometimes taking a step back is the only way to take a giant leap forward. A. Temporary loss can mislead your opponent into underestimating you. It can force them into a trap. It can give you the time and resources to launch a devastating counterattack. Lesson: sometimes the fastest way to ultimate victory is to absorb small defeats along the way. History's greatest masters of this strategy. 1. Napoleon's trap at Austerlitz. 1805. In the Battle of Austerlitz, Napoleon appeared weak on purpose. He let his enemies believe he was losing by retreating and leaving one side of his army exposed. His enemies rushed forward, thinking they had won, and that's when Napoleon struck. He collapsed his army around them. He crushed their forces in one of history's most brilliant victories. The result? He turned a pretend loss into one of his greatest military triumphs. Lesson: let your opponent think they've won, then destroy them. To the art of losing to win in business. Amazon's master plan. In its early years, Amazon lost money on purpose. They sold books at a loss, making almost no profit. Investors and competitors thought Amazon was weak, but Bezos had a long-term plan. He was building customer loyalty, data insights, and market dominance. When the time was right, he expanded into everything, crushing competitors. The result? Amazon became a trillion-dollar empire. The short-term losses set up massive long-term success. Lesson: be willing to lose small battles to dominate the entire war. 3. The political genius of Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln faced constant criticism during the Civil War. His enemies wanted him to rush into battles he wasn't ready for. Instead, he waited, took early losses, and found the right general, Ulysses S. Grant. Once he had the right team, he crushed the Confederacy and won the war. He knew that patience and the right timing mattered more than early victories. The result? Lincoln's strategy saved the Union. His patience led to ultimate success. Lesson: if you pick your battles wisely, you can lose today and still win big tomorrow. How to use this strategy in life and business. 1. Take short-term losses to gain long-term power. Example: Tesla's strategy. Tesla spent years losing money while perfecting its electric car technology. Critics said they would never succeed, but Musk had a long-term vision. When the industry finally caught up, Tesla was already miles ahead. Result? Tesla became a $1 trillion company. Lesson: smart players don't chase quick wins. They build empires to let your opponent underestimate you. Example: Muhammad Ali's rope-a-dope. Ali pretended to be weak against George Foreman. He let Foreman punch himself out, wasting energy then. When Foreman was exhausted, Ali knocked him out. Result: Ali won the fight and became a legend. Lesson: sometimes letting your opponent think they're winning is the smartest strategy. 3. Absorb small defeats to set up a decisive victory. Example: Netflix's Blockbuster laughed at Netflix in the early 2000s. Netflix wasn't making much money yet. Instead of competing immediately, they focused on perfecting streaming technology. By the time Blockbuster realized the threat, it was too late. Result? Blockbuster went bankrupt. Netflix took over the world. Lesson: play the long game. Most people are too focused on quick wins. The war strategy for losing. Battles to win wars. 1. Pick your battles wisely. You don't have to win every. Fight just the ones that matter. 2. Use short-term defeats to strengthen your position. Every loss should make you smarter, stronger, and more prepared. 3. Strike when the time is right. Absorb pressure. Wait for weakness, and launch a devastating counterattack. Next strategy preview. Strategy 13. Know your enemy. In the next strategy, we'll reveal why understanding your opponent better than they understand themselves is the key to ultimate victory. Turn the page. The war continues. Strategy 13. Know your enemy. Victory belongs to those who understand their opponents better than they understand themselves. Why most people fail in battles and how you can outsmart everyone. Most people focus on their own strengths when preparing for battle, but the real key to winning: knowing your enemy inside out, predicting their next move before they make it, using their weaknesses against them. The biggest mistake in war, business, and life is underestimating your opponent. You must think like them. You must anticipate their moves. You must get inside their head. The strategist is not the strongest. It's the one who controls the battlefield before the fight even begins. The masters of this strategy. 1. Sun Tzu, the ancient genius of war. Sun Tzu, the legendary Chinese general and author of The Art of War, said, "If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles." He studied his opponents so well that he could predict their moves. He won battles before they even started by exploiting their weaknesses. The result? He never walked into a battle unprepared. His enemies never knew what hit them. Lesson: the smartest warrior wins without even fighting. To Hannibal's genius at Cannae 216 BC. Hannibal, the Carthaginian general, studied the Roman army's strengths and weaknesses. He knew the Romans relied on brute force and direct attacks. Instead of fighting them head-on, he lured them into a trap. He pretended to be weak, drawing the Romans into the center. Then he surrounded them from the sides and wiped out their entire army. The result? He humiliated the Romans, one of the most powerful armies in history. He turned their greatest strength into their downfall. Lesson: when you understand your enemy's mindset, you can control their fate. 3. How Apple outsmarted Microsoft. In the 1990s, Microsoft dominated the tech world. Apple knew it couldn't compete in the same way. Instead of playing Microsoft's game, Apple changed the battlefield. They focused on design, user experience, and premium branding. They made Microsoft look outdated and clunky. Instead of fighting where Microsoft was strong, they created a new market. The result? Apple became the world's most valuable company. Microsoft, despite its dominance, lost control of the narrative. Lesson: never fight on your enemy's terms. Make them play your game. How to use this strategy in life and business. 1. Study your competition ruthlessly. Example: McDonald's versus Burger King. McDonald's studies every move its competitors make. They analyze their pricing, marketing, and menu choices. Every time Burger King tries something new, McDonald's responds strategically. Result: McDonald's stays ahead by controlling the battlefield. Lesson: the more you know about your enemy, the more control you have to predict their next move before they make it. Example: chess grandmasters. The best chess players don't just think about their next move. They predict 5 to 10 moves ahead. Knowing exactly how their opponent will respond, they force their opponents into mistakes by seeing the entire game in advance. Result: the battle is won before the final move. Lesson: anticipation beats reaction every time. 3. Attack where they are weak, not where they are strong. Example: guerrilla warfare success. Smaller armies can't defeat stronger enemies head-on. Instead, they use unconventional attacks, ambushes, like psychological warfare. They exhaust and frustrate their enemies until they collapse. Result: many weaker forces have defeated powerful empires. Lesson: never fight strength with strength. Find the hidden weakness. The war strategy for knowing your enemy. 1. Become a master observer. Watch how your opponent operates. Look for patterns, blind spots, and weaknesses to control their decisions without them realizing. Make them react to you instead of leading the game. Set traps and force them into bad choices. 3. Strike when they least expect it. Wait for their guard to drop. Attack when they are overconfident, distracted, or weakened. Next strategy preview. Strategy 14. Overwhelm with speed and shock. In the next strategy, we'll reveal how lightning fast attacks and overwhelming force can crush even the strongest opponents. Before they can react, turn the page. The war continues. Strategy 14. Overwhelm with speed and shock. Strike before they can think. Hit so hard they never recover. The secret to winning: attack with relentless speed. Most people make the mistake of waiting too long to act. They overthink, hesitate, and give their opponents time to prepare. But the most successful strategists never give their enemies a chance to breathe. They attack before the enemy expects it. They hit with overwhelming force. They move so fast that their opponents are left stunned and powerless. Hesitation is death. Speed is power. The first strike is the deadliest. The faster you move, the less resistance you face. Shock and awe leave your enemies paralyzed. Lesson: never let them see you coming. And when you strike, make it count. The masters of speed and shock. One blitzkrieg, the strategy that changed war forever. In World War II, Germany introduced a new kind of warfare that shocked the world. Blitzkrieg lightning war. Instead of slow, drawn-out battles, the German army moved at lightning speed. They used tanks, planes, and troops in perfect coordination. 2. Overwhelm their enemies. The enemy was so shocked they didn't have time to respond. Result: Poland fell in weeks. France, considered one of the strongest armies, collapsed in just 6 weeks. The world was in complete disbelief. Lesson: the faster you strike, the fewer obstacles you face. To Napoleon's lightning attacks, Napoleon never let his enemies rest. His armies moved at double the speed of his opponents. While other generals were still preparing their battle plans, Napoleon had already won. Result: he conquered Europe faster than any leader before him. He defeated armies twice the size of his own just by moving faster. Lesson: speed neutralizes size and strength. 3. Elon Musk's speed in business, while competitors take years. To develop new technology, Elon Musk launches and innovates at record-breaking speeds. When NASA and Boeing took decades to build rockets, SpaceX built reusable rockets in just a few years. While car companies spent years debating electric cars, Tesla dominated the market before they could react. Result: SpaceX became the first private company to send humans into space. Tesla forced every major automaker to switch to electric vehicles. Musk's speed left competitors stunned and scrambling to catch up. Lesson: in business, the fastest mover controls the market. How to use this strategy in life and business. 1. Move before your competitors do. Example: Facebook versus MySpace. MySpace was slow and reactive. Facebook expanded rapidly, adding new features and users at record speed. By the time MySpace tried to fight back, it was already too late. Result: Facebook became a global empire, and MySpace faded into history. Lesson: if you move fast enough, your competitors won't even know what hit them. To hit hard and fast to shock your opponents. Example: Mike Tyson's knockout strategy. Mike Tyson didn't wait for his opponents to get comfortable. He rushed them, overwhelmed them, and knocked them out in the first round. Before they could adjust, they were already on the ground. Result: Tyson became the youngest heavyweight champion in history. Lesson: the first strike is the most important. Make it count. 3. Don't wait. Take action before others can react. Example: Netflix destroyed Blockbuster, while Blockbuster ignored the rise of streaming. Netflix moved fast and dominated online. Entertainment: by the time Blockbuster realized what was happening, Netflix had already won. Result: Netflix became the king of streaming. Blockbuster went bankrupt. Lesson: if you hesitate, someone else will take your opportunity. The war strategy for overwhelming with speed and shock. 1. Strike first and strike fast. Don't give your enemy time to react. Be aggressive and take control before they can resist. 2. Keep moving. Never let them catch up. Momentum is your greatest weapon. If you slow down, you give your enemy a chance to recover. 3. Shock them so hard they never recover. Leave your enemy so overwhelmed that they mentally break. Psychological. Shock is as powerful as physical attack. Next strategy preview. Strategy 15, control the battlefield before the battle begins. In the next strategy, I'll learn how to shape the battlefield in your favor, making it impossible for your enemy to win even before the fight starts. Turn the page. The war continues. Strategy 15, control the battlefield before the battle begins. The winner is decided before the fight even starts. The hidden power of controlling the battlefield. Most people think battles are won on the battlefield. They're wrong. Wars are won before the first shot is fired. Negotiations are won before people even sit at the table. Business empires rise before competitors realize what's happening. Why? Because the most powerful strategists never fight on unfavorable ground. They shape the battlefield so that when the fight begins, victory is already inevitable. Lesson: the best way to win is to make sure you never have to fight a fair battle. Masters of battlefield control. 1. Sun Tzu. The art of war is the art of manipulating the terrain. Over 2,500 years ago, Sun Tzu declared, "The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting." He taught that a general who controls the battlefield controls the outcome. The best generals force the enemy into weak positions where they have no choice but to lose. Result: Sun Tzu's strategies have been used for centuries in war, business, and politics. Lesson: set the conditions so that victory is automatic. To Genghis Khan, manipulating the land to destroy. Larger armies. Genghis Khan's army was smaller than his enemies, but he never fought on their terms. He would lure enemy troops into terrain where his cavalry had the advantage. He would trick them into fighting in harsh deserts or open plains, where his horse archers dominated. Result? He conquered more land than anyone in history. He defeated empires far larger than his own. Lesson: you don't need to be the biggest or strongest, just the smartest. 3. Steve Jobs. Controlling the business battlefield. Apple never plays by the same rules as its competitors. Instead of fighting in price wars with Samsung and Microsoft, Apple created its own battlefield. Premium branding. Apple controlled the user experience, the design, the marketing, and even the retail stores. Result? While competitors were fighting for market share, Apple dominated the high-end market. They made customers loyal for life. Lesson: if you control the battlefield, your enemies can never truly compete with you. How to use this strategy in life and business. 1. Shape the environment so you have the advantage. Example: Amazon versus traditional retail. Instead of competing with Walmart on physical stores, Amazon created an entirely different battlefield. E-commerce. By the time Walmart tried to catch up, Amazon had already won. Result: Amazon became the most dominant retailer in the world. Lesson: don't fight where others are strongest. Create your own battlefield point to lure your opponents into losing. Positions. Example: Muhammad Ali's rope-a-dope strategy. In his fight against George Foreman, Ali let Foreman punch himself out. Foreman exhausted himself, throwing heavy punches. Then Ali countered and knocked him out. Result? Ali won one of the greatest boxing matches in history. Lesson: don't attack head-ons. Force your enemy into a position where they destroy themselves. 3. Set the rules so that you can't lose. Example: casinos and the house edge. Casinos: never gamble. They design every game so that the odds always favor the house. Over time, the house always wins. Result: Las Vegas built a billion-dollar empire on this strategy. Lesson: set up the game so that no matter what, you win. The war strategy for controlling the battlefield: one, never fight on unfavorable ground. If you have no advantage, don't. Engage. Find a way to shift the environment before the fight even starts. 2. Set traps and force your opponent's hand. Lure them into bad decisions. Let them waste energy before you strike. Point 3. Design the rules of the game so you always win. Create conditions where you profit whether you win or lose. Shape the world around you instead of reacting to it. Next strategy preview. Strategy 16. Create an unbreakable psychological fortress. In the next strategy, you'll learn how to build an unstoppable mindset that keeps you strong no matter what happens. Turn the page. The war continues. Strategy 16. Create an unbreakable psychological fortress. The strongest fortress is the mind that cannot be broken. The war of the mind. Wars are not just fought on battlefields. They are fought in the mind. The greatest warriors, leaders, and strategists don't just control their enemies, they control themselves. They create an impenetrable mental fortress. So no attack, failure, or crisis can shake them. Why is this strategy critical? Your greatest battles are psychological. Fear, doubt, and uncertainty will try to sabotage you. Your enemy will attack your confidence before attacking your army. Wars are won by breaking spirits before breaking bodies. If you master your emotions, you master the battlefield. The cold, hard truth. Weak minds lose wars. A general who panics under pressure loses battles. A business leader who collapses under stress loses their company. An athlete who loses mental focus loses championships. But those who build an unbreakable mind become unstoppable. The legends of psychological fortitude. 1. Alexander the Great, the leader who refused to feel defeated. When his army was outnumbered, his generals panicked. They begged him to retreat. But Alexander remained completely unshaken. He convinced his men they were destined to win before the battle even started. Result? His army won battles that seemed impossible. Lesson? Your belief in victory is more powerful than any army. To Napoleon, turning defeat into motivation. After his first exile, Napoleon didn't collapse mentally. He used his failure to make a comeback. When he returned to France, his former soldiers immediately joined him. His mental strength was so powerful that his presence alone was enough to regain control of his empire. Result? He ruled again, even after being exiled. Lesson: till resilience turns defeat into a temporary setback. Not a permanent failure. Point 3. Kobe Bryant, the Mamba mindset of absolute control. Kobe lost major games, suffered injuries, and faced relentless criticism. But his mindset was bulletproof. He trained harder, ignored the noise, and focused only on domination. Result: he became one of the greatest basketball players of all time. Lesson: your biggest weapon is your ability to stay focused while others break. How to build an unbreakable mindset. 1. Master your emotions so they can't be used against you. Fact: your enemy will try to trigger your fear, anger, and doubt. If they control your emotions, they control you. How to fix this? Detach from emotions in high-pressure situations. Learn to pause, breathe, and analyze before reacting. Never let external events dictate your inner state. If you stay calm, you maintain control. Train yourself to expect adversity. But the mentally strong are never surprised by difficulty. 2. Develop ruthless self-discipline. Fact, weak people rely on motivation. Strong people rely on discipline. How to fix this? Create ironclad daily habits, no matter how you feel. Winners don't make excuses. When your mind says quit, ignore it. Train yourself to keep going when you're tired, discouraged, or overwhelmed. Remember, you are at war. Every day, you are fighting for dominance over your work, your goals, and your future. 3. Build an internal code of honor. Fact: the most unshakable people operate by a personal code. They don't need outside validation or permission. How to fix this? Decide who you are and never break that identity. Are you strong? Are you disciplined? Are you relentless? Live by principles, not emotions. Never let temporary feelings dictate permanent decisions. Make your mind your greatest ally, not your worst enemy. The war strategy for mental domination. 1. Train for hardship before it arrives. Athletes train in pain so they can perform. Under pressure, soldiers train for war so they don't panic in battle. You must train your mind to stay strong in adversity before it happens, too. Control your reactions so you control the battlefield. When people lose their temper, they lose their power. Stay calm when others lose control. That's when you gain the advantage. 3. Develop indifference to criticism and praise. Criticism won't break you, and praise won't soften you. You remain focused on the mission. Nothing else matters. The key takeaway? Build a mind that can't be broken if you master your mind. No external force can defeat you if you control your emotions. You control the battlefield. If you stay unshaken in chaos, you will always have the upper hand. Next strategy preview. Strategy 17: the art of deception in war. The next strategy reveals how the greatest warriors and strategists use deception to win battles before they even started. Turn the page. The war continues. Strategy 17: the art of deception in war. All warfare is based on deception. By Sun Tzu. Why deception is the most powerful weapon in war. Wars are not won by brute strength alone. They are won by making the enemy believe in an illusion. If your enemy doesn't know what's real, they can't defend against it. History's greatest warriors, leaders, and strategists didn't just fight harder. They outsmarted, misled, and manipulated their enemies into making fatal mistakes. They made their opponents fight the wrong battle. They created distractions to strike where it hurt the most. They won wars before the first attack even happened. This is the art of deception. Master it, and you will always have the upper hand. The greatest masters of deception in history. 1. Sun Tzu. Winning without fighting. Sun Tzu understood war is not about fighting battles, it's about controlling perception. He tricked enemy forces into believing they were outmatched. This led to surrenders without a single battle. Result? He defeated armies without wasting resources. Lesson: the best victory is the one where your enemy destroys themselves. 2. The D-Day fakeout. How the Allies fooled Hitler. Before the D-Day invasion in World War II, the Allies knew they had to deceive Hitler. They created a fake army, used dummy tanks, and spread false radio messages. Hitler fell for the trap and moved his forces to the wrong location. Result? The real invasion faced much weaker resistance, leading to victory. Lesson: a well-crafted illusion can cripple even the strongest enemy. 3. The Trojan horse, the most legendary deception in history. The Greeks couldn't break into Troy after 10 years of war, so they pretended to surrender and left a giant wooden horse as a gift. The Trojans brought the horse into their city without realizing it was full of Greek soldiers. Result? The Greeks destroyed Troy from the inside. Lesson: people will let you in if they believe you are harmless. How to use deception to dominate any battlefield. 1. Control perception. Control the war. Fact: people don't react to reality, they react to their perception of reality. If you control what they see, hear, and believe, you control their actions. How to use this? Appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak. Feed your enemy false information so they prepare for the wrong battle. Use unpredictability when they expect one thing. Do the opposite. To use distractions to strike where it hurts. Fact: if your enemy is focused on the wrong target, they won't see the real attack coming. How to use this? Make them focus on a minor problem while you launch a major attack elsewhere. Create small, obvious deceptions to hide your real, bigger deception. Make them feel confident then. Attack when they least expect it. 3. Build a reputation that works in your favor. Fact: people believe you are predictable. You can use that against them. How to use this? If you're known as aggressive, act passive then. Strike unexpectedly. If you're seen as honest, lie when it matters most. If they think they understand your strategy, change it at the last second. The war strategy for mastering deception. 1. Always keep the enemy guessing. Never be completely predictable. Change your tactics to create confusion. 2. Use false trails to mislead your opponent. Make your enemy think they have figured you out. Feed them small lies to make them confident. Then hit them with the truth when it's too late. 3. Strike only when they least expect it. The best attacks come when the enemy is relaxed. Make them lower their guard and go for the kill. The key takeaway: deception wins before the battle begins. If you control what your enemy believes, you control their actions if they are fighting the wrong battle. You've already won. If they trust you, they will never see the attack coming. Next strategy preview. Strategy 18. Know when to cut your losses. The next strategy reveals why great warriors and strategists don't cling to lost causes. They walk away before they get destroyed. Turn the page. 4. Continues. Strategy 18. Know when to cut your losses. He will win who knows when to fight and when not to fight. By Sun Tzu. Why holding on too long is a fatal mistake. Most people fail not because they lack intelligence or effort, but because they refuse to walk away when they should. They cling to falling, businesses that will never recover, toxic relationships that drain their energy, bad investments because they don't want to admit defeat. The most powerful leaders, warriors, and strategists in history all mastered one crucial skill: knowing when to walk away. If you fail to cut your losses, you bleed out before the real battle begins. This strategy is about escaping before you're trapped, withdrawing before destruction, and regrouping for the real fight that matters. The deadly cost of holding on too long. 1. Napoleon's Russian disaster. The price of stubbornness. Mistake. Napoleon invaded Russia. In 1812, with 600,000 men, the strongest army in the world, but as the brutal Russian winter set in, he refused to retreat. His soldiers froze, starved, and were picked off one by one. Result? By the time he finally withdrew, only 10% of his army remained. Lesson: if he had cut his losses earlier, he could have lived to fight another day. To Kodak, the billion-dollar mistake. Kodak invented the digital camera in 1975, but they refused to let go of film photography, fearing it would hurt. Their business they held on to long until digital cameras took over, leaving them bankrupt. Result: Kodak collapsed while newer companies took over the market. Lesson: the world changes. If you refuse to adapt, you die. 3. The Vietnam War. A costly refusal to retreat. Mistake. The U.S. kept fighting a war they couldn't win, pouring in more troops. Money and resources. The longer they stayed, the worse the losses became. Results: after 58,000 American deaths and billions lost, they finally pulled out. Lesson: sometimes the only way to win is to stop fighting. The power of strategic retreat. Winners don't fight every battle. They fight the right ones. If you learn to cut your losses early, you free yourself to fight smarter battles. If a war is unwinnable, stop fighting. If a situation drains you more than it benefits you, walk away. If you're on a sinking ship, don't go down with a jump and swim to safety. How to know when it's time to cut your losses? 1. The 40% rule. When more effort won't change the outcome. If you've put in 40% of the effort needed and there's still no improvement, stop. Winners know when they're wasting energy. To the sunk cost fallacy, don't let the past trap you. Just because you've invested time or money doesn't mean you have to keep going. Smart. Leaders don't let past mistakes control future decisions. Point 3. Opportunity cost. What are you missing out on? Every second you hold on to something useless is a second you're not investing in something better. Cutting losses frees you to chase something bigger. The worst strategy for walking away like a winner. 1. Always have an escape plan. Never trap yourself in a situation with no way out. If things go wrong, have a strategy to exit fast, to set clear limits before you start. Decide in advance: how much money, time, and energy will I commit before I walk away? If you hit that limit, stop. 3. Don't let ego make the decision. Your pride will tell you to hold on. Your intelligence will tell you to let go. Winners choose intelligence over ego. The key takeaway: live to fight another day. Retreat is not failure, it's a strategy. Cutting losses is not quitting, it's repositioning. Every great warrior, leader, and strategist knows when to walk away. Next strategy preview. Strategy 19. Create a sense of urgency. The next strategy reveals why pressure, speed, and momentum are the keys to victory. Turn the page. The war continues. Strategy 19. Create a sense of urgency. Delays breed danger. Hesitation is the death of momentum. Why speed wins wars and everything else. Every great victory in history had one thing in common: speed. When you create urgency, you dominate. Before enemies react, overwhelm opposition with relentless force. Prevent fear, doubt, and hesitation from killing your momentum. The number one killer of success isn't failure, it's hesitation. Most people wait too long. They wait for the right time, which never comes. More information, which leads to overthinking. the perfect moment, which is an illusion. But war favors those who strike first and fast. Forcing action, accelerating momentum, and winning before others even know the battle has begun. The power of urgency in war. One blitzkrieg, the strategy that crushed Europe. What happened? In World War II, Hitler's Germany used blitzkrieg lightning war, a strategy of moving faster than the enemy could react. Instead of slow, predictable attacks, they struck with overwhelming force, shocking their enemies into defeat. Within 6 weeks, they conquered France, something no one thought possible. Lesson? Massive action, taken quickly, overwhelms even stronger opponents. To Alexander the Great, speed was his secret weapon. What happened? Alexander the Great never let his enemies breathe. His army moved twice as fast as any other force, attacking before enemies could prepare. His opponents were always reacting instead of attacking. And that's why he never lost a battle. Lesson: the faster you move, the harder it is for others to stop you. 3. Napoleon's 24-hour rule. What happened? Napoleon forced his generals to make decisions within 24 hours, no delays. If they hesitated, they were replaced. He won battles before his enemies had even finished planning. Lesson: speed destroys hesitation, while hesitation destroys opportunity. Why most people fail and how urgency fixes it. Most people move too slowly because they overthink everything. Wait for motivation. Fear making mistakes. The solution? Urgency forces action. How to use urgency to win battles in life. 1. The 48-hour rule. Take action before doubt creeps in. If you have a goal or idea, act within 48 hours or you'll never do it. The longer you wait, the weaker you're at. Drive becomes to create tight deadlines to force momentum. If you give yourself a month to do something, it'll take a month. If you give yourself a week, you'll finish in a week. Shorter deadlines force laser focus. 3. Make decisions faster before overthinking kills you. Spending weeks debating a decision leads to hesitation. Successful people decide fast and adjust later. The battlefield doesn't reward slow thinkers. It rewards fast movers. The war strategy for creating urgency. 1. Set artificial deadlines. Give yourself half the time you think you need. This creates pressure and forces rapid execution. 2. Use external pressure. Announce your goal publicly. Hire a coach, mentor, or team to hold you accountable. Deadlines feel more real when others are watching. 3. Reward speed, not perfection. The goal is momentum, not flawlessness. Fast progress beats perfect plans. The key takeaway? Urgency equals power. Hesitation is the enemy. Action taken fast is always better than action delayed. Winners move before they feel ready. Next strategy preview. Strategy 20. Control the dynamic. The next strategy reveals why those who dictate the battlefield dictate the outcome. Turn the page. The war continues. Strategy 20. Control the dynamic. If you control the battlefield, you control the war. Why controlling the battlefield is the ultimate power move. Every great commander, entrepreneur, and strategist has one thing in common: they control the game. When you control the battlefield, you force opponents to react to you, not the other way around. Set the pace, the rules, and the direction of the battle. Win before the fight even begins. Most people fight battles on enemy terms, and that's why they lose. They play defense instead of offense, react instead of initiate, adapt to others instead of forcing others to adapt to them. But winners bend reality to their will. This strategy is about dictating the game, eliminating randomness, and always staying 2 steps ahead, the power of controlling the battlefield. 1. Genghis Khan, the master of terrain control. What happened? Genghis Khan never fought on his enemy's terms. If the battlefield didn't favor him, he changed it. He lured enemies into deserts, ambushed them in valleys, and attacked at their weakest points. His enemies were always trapped, outmaneuvered, and forced to play his game. Lesson: the battlefield isn't fixed. Shape it to your advantage to the art of setting the frame. Business wars. What happened? Apple versus Microsoft, Coke versus Pepsi, Tesla versus legacy automakers. The winner is always the one who controls the narrative. Instead of fighting head-to-head, they shift the conversation to their strengths. Apple positioned itself as innovative and premium, forcing others to compete on its terms. Tesla made electric cars cool and desirable, eliminating the eco-car stigma. Lesson: if you control the framing, you control the perception of the battle. 3. Julius Caesar, burn the bridges, control the future. What happened? When Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon, he made retreat impossible. He forced himself and his men into a do-or-die situation by controlling the conditions of battle. He won before the war even started. Lesson: when you control the battlefield, you eliminate hesitation and force decisive action. Why most people lose battles and how to fix it. Most people lose because they play by someone else's rules. They fight on enemy ground. Let others set the pace, react instead of lead. The solution: shape the battlefield before the fight begins. How to control the battlefield in life. 1. Set the rules before others do. If you let others define the game, you'll always be at a disadvantage. Define the terms, frame the conversation, and set the expectations before anyone else does. The one who sets the rules has the advantage to control the environment. Control the outcome. Walking into a negotiation unprepared means you're already at a disadvantage. Choose the location, set the agenda, and control the tone of the meeting. Whoever controls the setting controls the direction of the conversation. 3. Make opponents react to you. If you're always reacting, you're losing. Take bold, unexpected moves that force others to respond to you. The best strategy is one that puts others on the defensive. The war strategy for controlling the battlefield. 1. Dictate the terms. If you're in business, create the category instead of competing in an existing one. If you're negotiating, frame the discussion before the other side can, to create constraints to force focus. Limit options to eliminate distractions and force progress. Example: Apple doesn't try to make every kind of computer. They focus on a few, making them the best. 3. Use psychological traps. Make opponents think they have control when they're actually trapped. Example: Napoleon often made enemies overcommit, then counterattacked when they were weak. The key takeaway: control equals victory. If you don't control the battlefield, you're already losing. Define the game before others do. Force others to react, never react to them. Next, strategy preview. Strategy 21: divide and conquer. The next strategy reveals how breaking alliances and spreading confusion can give you ultimate power. Turn the page. The war continues. Strategy 21: divide and conquer. The easiest way to weaken an enemy is to split them apart. Why division is the ultimate strategy for power. United enemies are strong. Divided enemies are weak. If history has proven one thing, it's this. A. Fractured. Enemy is an easy enemy to destroy. Rome mastered it. Napoleon exploited it. Corporate giants use it daily. Most people make the mistake of facing their enemies head-on. Instead, the smarter strategy is to turn allies against each other, spread confusion, distrust, and chaos, break down unity, and make enemies fight amongst themselves. This strategy destroys opponents from within, without direct confrontation. It's the ultimate power move. The power of divide and conquer won the Roman Empire's secret to global domination. What happened? Rome never fought a united enemy. Instead, they turned tribes against each other before attacking. When they invaded Britain, they allied with smaller tribes and made them fight their own people. Once the tribes were weakened from infighting, Rome easily took over. Lesson: a divided enemy is already half defeated. To Napoleon's genius psychological warfare, what happened? Napoleon would intentionally spread false rumors among enemy ranks. This made generals distrust each other and hesitate. The confusion and paranoia weakened their ability to fight as one unit. Lesson: sold out, create paranoia, and let your enemies destroy themselves. 3. How corporations use this strategy every day. What happens? Big companies intentionally create competition within their own teams. They pit departments against each other not to destroy them, but to drive higher performance. Employees focus on competing with each other instead of questioning the company's leadership. Lesson: control through division, and no one will challenge your authority. Why most people fail and how to fix it. Most people think strength comes from unity. That's only true if you are the one leading the unity. Most people lose because they try to fight powerful enemies directly. Manipulate the battlefield before attacking. Ignore the power of psychological warfare. The solution: make enemies destroy each other before you even lift a finger. How to use divide and conquer in life. 1. Break alliances before they form. If two rivals unite against you, you're in trouble. Keep them suspicious of each other before they can work together. The best way to defeat a coalition is to prevent it from forming. 2. Use disinformation to create distrust. If people fully trust each other, they won't betray each other. Spread subtle doubts. Make them question loyalty and watch alliances crumble. Once doubt enters a relationship, it's never the same again. 3. Make enemies fight each other. If you take on a united enemy, you're at a disadvantage. Make them focus on fighting each other instead of you, Distracted enemy is a weak enemy. The war strategy for divide and conquer: 1. Identify power structures. Who holds influence? Who trusts whom? Where is the weakest link? To plant the seed of doubt, a simple suggestion like, "Are you sure you can trust them?" can create long-term cracks in alliances. 3. Sit back and let the fire spread. Once distrust enters the equation, people naturally become paranoid and defensive. The key takeaway: division is power. If you can't destroy an enemy, break them apart. Turn allies into rivals, and rivals into enemies. Never let your enemies unite against you. Next strategy preview. Strategy 22. Force the enemy to make mistakes. The next strategy reveals how to manipulate opponents. into destroying themselves through their own actions. Turn the page. The war continues. Strategy 22. Force the enemy to make mistakes. A general who forces his enemy into errors has already won half the battle. Why this strategy works. The greatest victories come not from overpowering the enemy, but from letting them defeat themselves. Most people believe that winning requires more strength, more aggression, direct confrontation, but history proves the opposite. The best strategists don't fight harder, they fight smarter. They push enemies into making mistakes, then capitalize on those blunders. If your opponent is making errors, don't interrupt them. Instead, accelerate their downfall. The power of manipulating mistakes. One Sun Tzu's classic war strategy. What happened? The ancient Chinese general would never attack a strong enemy directly. Instead, he created traps that lured opponents into exposing their weaknesses. He forced them to make reckless decisions, and once they did, he struck with precision. Lesson. The best victories happen before the first battle begins. To how Napoleon forced his enemies into errors. What happened? Napoleon would fake weakness to make enemies overconfident. When they attacked recklessly, they walked right into a carefully planned trap. Their eagerness to strike first became their downfall. Lesson. Make your enemy impatient. Their overconfidence will destroy them. 3. Modern business warfare. How Apple and Samsung manipulate each other. What happens? Apple delays revealing its full technology, forcing Samsung to rush products to market. In their rush, Samsung makes mistakes, flawed designs, lawsuits, customer backlash. Apple then studies Samsung's failures and perfects its own product before launch. Lesson. Let your competition reveal their weaknesses first, then exploit. Why most people fail and how to fix it. Most people think success comes from attacking first. But the real secret is, let your enemy make the first move, then punish their mistakes. Frustrate them. Manipulate their emotions. And watch them self-destruct. Never act out of impulse. Always force your enemy to act emotionally. How? To force mistakes in life and business. 1. Use psychological triggers to push people into rash decisions. Make them emotional. Angry, impatient people make stupid mistakes. Plant seeds of doubt. If they second-guess themselves, they'll hesitate at critical moments. Create urgency. When people feel rushed, they stop thinking rationally. Example. In negotiations, fake disinterest. The other side may panic and offer a better deal out. Of fear of losing you, point to set traps that exploit overconfidence. Give your opponents small victories so they feel invincible. The moment they get reckless, strike. Example. In chess, experts sacrifice pieces to lure opponents into an attack. But the real plan is to expose weaknesses in the enemy's position. 3. Control the tempo of the battle. Never play at your enemy's speed. Force them into situations they are not prepared for. Slow down the fight when they want to go fast speed. Up when they want to slow down. Example. In sports, dominant teams often slow the game down when they have the lead, frustrating the opponent and making them take desperate, risky shots. The war strategy for forcing mistakes. 1. Disrupt their thinking. Say things that make them paranoid about making mistakes. Confuse them with conflicting information. 2. Let them dig their own grave. If they're moving in the wrong direction, encourage them to keep going. Their own momentum will be there. Downfall. 3. Strike when they're vulnerable. Once their mistakes become clear, hit fast and hard. The key takeaway? Success is about manipulating the battlefield. You don't need to be the strongest. You just need to be the smartest. Let others make mistakes, then use them against them. Patience wins wars. Force others into hasty, emotional decisions. Next strategy preview. Strategy 23: weaken the enemy before the fight begins. The next strategy reveals how to secretly weaken your enemies before they even realize a battle is coming. Turn the page. The war continues. Strategy 23. Weaken the enemy before the fight begins. The best battle is the one that is won before it is fought. Why this strategy works? If you wait until the battle begins to start fighting, you've already lost. Most people believe that success comes from fighting hard, being aggressive, winning in direct confrontation, but the truth, the greatest victories happen long before the first punch is thrown. History's most successful generals, rulers, and business leaders didn't wait for battle. They strategically weakened their opponents beforehand, ensuring an easy victory. By the time the enemy realized they were in trouble, it was already too late. The power of pre-battle sabotage. 1. How the Roman Empire crushed its enemies. Before war even started, what happened? The Romans rarely fought strong opponents. Instead, they destabilized enemies first. They spread misinformation, created internal conflicts, and cut off supply lines. By the time the battle started, their enemies were weakened, divided, and demoralized. Lesson: the easiest way to win is to make sure your enemy is already defeated before the battle even begins. 2. How the British Empire controlled colonies through psychological warfare. What happened? Instead of fighting massive wars, the British used division to weaken local rulers. They created rivalries, funded opposition groups, and turned allies into enemies. By the time they moved in, their opponents were too weak to resist. Lesson: never fight a strong enemy, turn them weak first. Point 3. The business strategy of weaken then destroy. How do powerful corporations dominate markets? Instead of directly attacking competitors, they slowly drain their strength. They steal key employees, disrupt supply chains, and spread bad PR. By the time the competitor realizes what's happening, they're already too weak to fight back. Example: Amazon weakens small businesses by underpricing products. Once the competition is gone, they raise prices again and dominate the market. Why most people fail and how to fix it. Most people rush into battles unprepared. But the real secret to winning is slowly drain your enemy's strength before the fight. Use subtle moves to make them weak, distracted, and desperate. By the time they realize what's happening, it's too late. How to weaken an enemy. Before confrontation: 1. Cut off their resources. Control access to money, supplies, or talent. Disrupt their ability to operate effectively. Example: in business, large corporations buy up patents and technology, preventing competitors from innovating. To divide and conquer. Turn their allies against them. Plant seeds of doubt and internal conflict. Example: political leaders use media to create division among opposition groups, making them fight each other instead of the real enemy. 3. Manipulate their perception. Spread misinformation to make them react emotionally. Make them underestimate or overestimate threats. Example: in negotiations, leak false information about alternative offers to make your opponent desperate. The war strategy for pre-battle. Domination 1. Delay their strength while increasing yours. Slow down their momentum. Make them waste resources before the real fight. 2. Control the narrative. Use social influence, rumors, and perception to control the battlefield. 3. Strike when they're at their weakest. Once they are exhausted, confused, and vulnerably, launch a fast, decisive attack. The key takeaway: never fight a strong enemy. If your opponent is powerful, don't fight first. Weaken them. Create confusion, division, and resource shortages before engaging. By the time the battle begins, they should already be broken. Next, strategy preview. Strategy 24. Take the fight to the enemy. The next strategy reveals how to bring the battle to your opponent, your terms, at your chosen time. Turn the page. The war continues. Strategy 24. Take the fight to the enemy. A defensive war is a losing war. The greatest warriors never wait. They strike first on their terms. Why this strategy works? Most people lose because they wait too long to act. They hesitate. They play defense. They react instead of attacking. But the truth? The best way to win is to control the battlefield. Throughout history, the greatest conquerors, warriors, and business leaders all understood one thing: the one who strikes first, on their own terms, has the advantage. This is why Napoleon invaded before his enemies could unite. Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon before Rome could stop him. Amazon expands aggressively, killing competition before it can grow. They didn't wait. They didn't defend. They attacked first. The power of taking the fight to the enemy. One Alexander the Great's bold invasions. What happened? When Alexander faced the massive Persian Empire, he didn't wait for them to attack. Instead, he marched straight into enemy territory, forcing them to react. By controlling the fight, he dictated how the war played out. Lesson: the one who attacks first controls the battlefield. 2. Business giants destroying competition before it grows. How do industry leaders stay on top? They don't wait for competitors to catch up. They expand aggressively by out-threats and dominate markets before others get a chance. By the time others react, it's too late. Example: Facebook buys rival companies like Instagram and WhatsApp before they become a real threat. 3. Sports and combat. The power of the first strike. What do the best boxers, chess players, and military strategists have in common? They force their opponents into defensive positions. They control the tempo, dictating how the game is played. Once the opponent is reacting, they are already losing. Lesson: the more your enemy is forced to respond, the less control they have over the fight. Why most people fail and how to fix it. Most people wait too long to act. They think, I'll wait for the perfect moment. Let's see what the enemy does first. I'll defend myself if they attack. By the time they act, it's already too late. How to take the fight to the enemy? 1. Strike first, before they are ready. Move before they expect it. Force them into a reactionary position. Example: in negotiations, the person who makes the first demand controls the terms of the deal. 2. Expand before others have a chance. Don't wait for competitors to challenge you. Move aggressively. Seize opportunities before others even see them. Example: Netflix dominated streaming while Blockbuster hesitated. By the time Blockbuster tried to adapt, it was too late. 3. Control the battlefield. Choose the time, place, and method of engagement. Make your enemy fight on your terms. Example: military leaders force battles in terrain that favors them, not their enemies. The war strategy for aggressive domination: 1. Move fast and decisively. Act before the enemy has time to prepare. Speed and surprise are your greatest weapons. 2. Put your enemy on the defensive. Once they are reacting instead of acting, they lose control. Make them waste time, energy, and resources trying to catch up. 3. Never let the enemy regroup. Keep pushing forward. The moment you slow down, you give them a chance to recover. The key takeaway: always be on the offensive. Never wait, act first. Force your enemy to react to you, not the other way around. Once you take control, never let go. Next strategy preview. Strategy 25: when to surrender strategically. Sometimes the best way to win is to lose, but only on your terms. The next strategy reveals how to retreat wisely and set up your next victory. Turn the page. The war continues. Strategy 25: surrender as a tactical move. The greatest victories sometimes come from a well-timed retreat. Why this strategy works: most people think surrender means weakness. But in reality, surrender can be a strategic weapon. The foolish warrior fights every battle and burns out. The emotional fighter resists defeat, even when it's inevitable. The unwise leader refuses to retreat, leading to total destruction. But the truth: the best strategists know when to give up so they can win bigger later. Throughout history, the most successful leaders have understood: sometimes you must step back to move forward. This is why Hannibal lured the Romans into a trap by pretending to retreat. Napoleon abandoned Moscow to preserve his army for future battles. Companies sell out today to dominate the market tomorrow. They didn't give up. They surrendered strategically. The power of tactical surrender. 1. The Battle of Cannae. Hannibal's fake retreat. What happened? Hannibal, the Carthaginian general, faced a massive Roman army. He pretended to retreat, making the Romans believe he was weak. As they rushed forward, he trapped them in a pincer movement and annihilated their forces. Lesson: surrendering can be a setup for a devastating counterattack. To Napoleon's strategic retreat from Moscow, what happened? In 1812, Napoleon invaded Russia, but the harsh winter threatened his entire army. Instead of staying and risking total destruction, he retreated to fight another day. While he lost Moscow, he preserved the core of his forces. Lesson: knowing when to walk away prevents total defeat. Point 3. Business takeovers. Losing to win later. How do smart companies use surrender to dominate? They let competitors win small battles. They can crush them later. They sell their business to a bigger company, then use that money to build something even greater. Example: Elon Musk sold PayPal, then used that money to build Tesla and SpaceX. Why most people fail and how to fix it. Most people fear surrender. They think, I can't quit, I'll look weak. I have to win every fight. If I give up now, I'll never recover. But refusing to retreat can lead to total destruction. How to surrender strategically without losing power. 1. Never fight a battle you can't win. If the odds are against you, step back. Don't let pride keep you in a losing war. Example: smart investors pull their money out before the market crashes to make the enemy think they've won. Let them believe they have the advantage. Lure them into overextending themselves. Example: in negotiations, pretend to give up a small demand so you can get something bigger. 3. Use surrender to regroup and strike back later. A. Temporary loss can give you time to rebuild. The key is to come back stronger than before. Example: Apple nearly went bankrupt in the 90s. Instead of resisting, it restructured, then became the biggest tech company in the world. The war. Strategy for tactical surrender. 1. Choose your battles wisely. Fools fight every war. Masters pick the right ones to retreat with a purpose. Never surrender without a plan for a comeback. 3. Make the enemy overextend. Use your defeat to lure them into overconfidence. The key takeaway: losing can be part of winning. Don't let pride trap you in unwinnable battles. A. Well-timed retreat can set up a massive future victory. Surrender smartly, never out of weakness. Always out of strategy. Next strategy preview. Strategy 26. Use the enemy's chaos against them. When your enemies are distracted, confused, or divided, that's your moment to strike. The next strategy reveals how to turn their disorganization into your greatest advantage. Turn the page. The war isn't over. Strategy 26. Seize victory from chaos. When your enemy is in disarray, that is the moment to strike. Why this strategy works? Most people see chaos as a threat, but true strategists see it as an opportunity. The untrained mind panics in disorder. The average person waits for stability before acting. The weak leader tries to restore control. But the powerful, they attack when their enemies are distracted, divided, and confused. Throughout history, the greatest victors have understood chaos is not a crisis. Chaos is a weapon. This is why Napoleon struck when his enemies were disorganized. Julius Caesar took advantage of political turmoil in Rome. Modern businesses rise by capitalizing on industry disruption. They didn't wait for order. They used disorder as a launchpad for domination. The power of exploiting chaos. One Napoleon's masterstroke. The Ulm campaign. What happened? In 1805, Austria and Russia formed an alliance against Napoleon, but their armies were poorly coordinated, slow to respond, and divided across multiple fronts. Napoleon moved fast, trapping 72,000 Austrian soldiers before they could organize. Without a major battle, he forced them to surrender, winning the campaign instantly. Lesson: when your enemy is disorganized, strike before they can recover. To Julius Caesar's power grab in Rome. What happened? Oh, Rome was in chaos, torn apart by internal political struggles. Instead of waiting for stability, Caesar marched on Rome, took control, and never looked back. He used the confusion of the Senate and rival factions to seize absolute power. Lesson: when the system is breaking down, move fast and take charge. 3 modern business tactics. Thriving in disruption. How do smart entrepreneurs use this strategy? They move fast when industries are in crisis. They launch bold ideas. When competitors are struggling, they capitalize on economic downturns to seize new markets. Example: Amazon used the 2008 recession to expand aggressively, while weaker companies crumbled. Why most people fail and how to fix it. Most people fear chaos. They think, I should wait until things settle down. This is too risky. I need more certainty before I act. But waiting means missing the best opportunities. How to exploit chaos for maximum power. 1. Recognize when your enemy is in disarray. Look for confusion, division, or uncertainty in their ranks. If they are struggling to organize, they are vulnerable. Example: in negotiations, Strike when the other side is dealing with internal conflicts too. Move fast and decisively. Hesitation is fatal. The moment you see an opening, take it. The bolder you are, the less time your enemy has to react. Example, in war, generals who move first control the battlefield. 3. Create even more confusion for your opponent. Use deception, misinformation, and speed to keep them off balance. If they are already struggling, make it worse. Example, in business, launch a surprise product when your competition is unprepared. The war strategy for winning in chaos. 1. Watch for signs of disarray. Confusion and internal conflicts mean an enemy is vulnerable too. Strike while they are distracted. The best time to act is when they are least ready. 3. Exploit the confusion to gain control. Turn disorder into an opportunity for domination. The key takeaway? Chaos creates opportunity. When your enemies are divided, that is your moment to strike. Do not wait for stability. Act when others are unprepared. Confusion is not your enemy. It is your greatest weapon. Next strategy preview. Strategy 27. Give your opponents no room to breathe. The most successful warriors, rulers, and businesses don't just win, they make sure their enemies never recover. The next strategy reveals how to apply relentless pressure to dominate completely. Turn the page. The war continues. Strategy 27. Give your opponents no room to breathe. The most successful conquerors don't just win battles, they make sure their enemies never recover. Why this strategy works. Defeating your opponent once is not enough. If you let them recover, they will come back stronger and more dangerous. Most people make a critical mistake. They win a battle and stop attacking. They assume their enemy is permanently defeated. They give their opponent time to rebuild and strike back. But true strategists apply relentless pressure. They don't just defeat their enemies, they suffocate them until there is no chance of a comeback. The ruthless logic of total domination, history proves. The best way to prevent future threats is to eliminate them completely. Julius Caesar crushed his enemies so they could never rise again. Genghis Khan wiped out entire armies to erase any future resistance. Alexander the Great didn't just conquer, he assimilated, controlling everything. They didn't let their enemies breathe. They made sure they never had another chance to fight back. Historical masterclass, no mercy. No comebacks. 1. Julius Caesar versus Pompey. The art of the final blow. What happened? In the Roman Civil War, Julius Caesar defeated Pompey in battle. But he didn't stop there. He pursued Pompey across the world, ensuring his absolute destruction. When Pompey fled to Egypt, Caesar made sure he was executed. With his greatest rival gone, Caesar had no opposition left in Rome. Lesson: victory isn't real until your enemy has no way to fight back. 2. Genghis Khan. The science of overwhelming force. What happened? Genghis Khan never left his enemies alive to regroup. After winning a battle, he immediately destroyed their supply lines, armies, and leaders. He erased entire civilizations that resisted him. The result? His empire became the largest in history because no enemy could rise again. Lesson: never give your enemies a second chance. Point 3. Corporate warfare. How modern business giants win. How do powerful businesses use this strategy? Apple outmaneuvers competitors before they can catch up. Amazon crushes rivals by expanding aggressively into new markets. Tesla dominates by setting industry standards that others struggle to match. They don't just compete, they obliterate. Competition before it becomes a threat. Why most people fail and how to fix it. The biggest mistake. People assume one victory is enough. They stop attacking, thinking the battle is over. They get lazy and let their opponents rebuild. But every great strategist knows a wounded enemy is still a threat. A weakened opponent is still dangerous. A battle is only over when there is no chance of retaliation. How to ensure total domination. 1. Keep the pressure on. After a win. 2. Not stop attack even harder. Make sure your opponent has no time to recover. Example, in war. Generals who push forward after a victory win entire campaigns point to destroy their ability to fight back. Target their resources. Allies and morale. Eliminate their leaders, supply chains, and influence. Example in business, big companies. Buy or destroy competitors before they can grow. Point 3. Never let an opponent rebuild, even after victory. Monitor them closely. If they try to recover, shut them down instantly. Example, in sports. Teams that dominate keep improving, so there. Rivals never catch up. The war strategy for long-term power? 1. Attack relentlessly. 1 victory is not enough. Keep attacking until your opponent is permanently weak. 2. Cut off their comeback path. Destroy their ability to recover financially, literally, or strategically. 3. Stay vigilant even after winning. Keep watching and strike again. If they show signs of rebuilding, the key takeaway: don't just win, dominate. Victory means nothing if your opponent can fight back later, after a win. Increase your attacks to ensure total destruction. Only when your opponent is permanently neutralized. Have you truly won? Next strategy preview. Strategy 28. Circle your enemy. Before the fight even begins. The greatest warriors don't wait for battle. They set traps in advance, making sure the enemy is already defeated before the first move is made. The next strategy reveals how to win before the war even starts. Turn the page. The war continues. Strategy 28. Encircle your enemy before the fight even begins. The greatest warriors don't wait for battle. They set traps in advance, making sure the enemy is already defeated before the first move is made. Why this strategy works? The easiest battles are the ones you don't have to fight. Most people make a fatal mistake. They enter a fight without controlling the battlefield. They react to their enemy instead of setting the terms of engagement. They allow their opponent room to maneuver and escape. But true strategists trap their enemies before they even realize a battle is coming. They surround them mentally, physically, and strategically so that victory is inevitable. The power of preemptive encirclement? History proves the best way to win is to make sure your opponent has no options. Napoleon encircled enemies before engaging in battle. Mongol warriors used fake retreats to lure enemies into traps. Modern business moguls dominate markets before competitors even enter. They didn't just fight, they controlled every variable before the fight began. Historical masterclass, how the greats used encirclement. 1. Hannibal's canny, the perfect ambush. What happened? In 216 BC, Hannibal faced a much larger Roman army. Instead of fighting head-on, he lured the Romans into a trap. His forces encircled them, completely trapping 80,000 soldiers. Rome suffered one of its worst defeats in history. Lesson: best fights are over before they begin. Point to Napoleon's genius. Choke the enemy before battle. What happened? Napoleon never allowed his enemies to fight on their terms before major battles. He would position his forces to cut off supplies, reinforcements, and escape routes. By the time the battle started, his enemies were already weakened, demoralized, and surrounded. Lesson: victory isn't about strength, it's about positioning. 3 Business warfare. How giants crush competition. How do modern business leaders use this strategy? Google dominates search so competitors can't gain traction. Amazon controls logistics, making it impossible for small businesses to compete. Facebook, Meta, buys rising platforms before they become a threat. They don't just compete, they corner the market before others realize what's happening. Why most people fail and how to fix it. The biggest mistake: they enter fights without setting the conditions for victory. They allow their opponent to move freely and regroup. They react instead of controlling the battle. But every great strategist knows freedom of movement is power. An enemy with options is dangerous. The best way to win is to control the battlefield. Before the first move, how to trap your opponent before the battle starts. 1. Control the battlefield. Don't fight until you've shaped the environment in your favor. Position yourself so the enemy has no good choices. Example: in war, generals choose terrain that gives them an advantage. In business, companies control supply chains before competitors can react to cut off their escape routes. Never give your enemy room to breathe or retreat. Make sure they have no allies, resources, or fallback plans. Example: in negotiations, strong leaders eliminate alternatives so the other party has no choice but to accept their terms. 3. Set psychological traps. Manipulate their perceptions so they think they're safe until it's too late. Use misinformation, misdirection, and deception to lure them into the position you want. Example: in sports, great teams force their opponents into a losing strategy by controlling the pace of the game. The war strategy for guaranteed success. 1. Lay the trap in advance. Start planning before your opponent even knows. A battle is coming. To corner them until there's no escape. Once they realize they're trapped, it's already too late. 3. Execute when they are weakest. Attack at the perfect moment when they have no way to fight back. The key takeaway: win before the battle starts. Never fight on equal terms. Stack the odds in your favor before the battle begins. Control the environment, the options, and the timing. By the time your opponent realizes they're in trouble, victory should already be secured. Next strategy preview. Strategy 29. Exhaust your enemy before they even engage. The most dangerous fights are the ones where your opponent is fresh and ready. The next strategy will show you how to make them weak, tired, and demoralized before the first strike. Turn the page. The war continues. Strategy 29. Exhaust your enemy before they even engage. A tired enemy is a defeated enemy. Make them waste their energy long before the real battle begins. Why this strategy works. The easiest way to win a fight. Make sure your opponent is too weak to fight back. Most people make a crucial mistake. They fight opponents when they are at full strength. They engage in battles where both sides are evenly matched. They underestimate the power of fatigued, both mental and physical. But the smartest warriors, strategists, and business leaders know you don't have to defeat a strong opponent if you can weaken them first. The power of exhaustion. Warfare. A soldier who hasn't eaten or slept will break faster in battle, Boxer who has been running for 10 rounds will drop his guard in the 11th. A. Business rival who is drowning in problems won't have the energy to compete. The goal isn't just to fight. The goal is to ensure your enemy enters the fight already drained. Frustrated and vulnerable, historical masterclass. How the greats used exhaustion to won the guerrilla war against Napoleon. What happened? In 1808, Napoleon invaded Spain, expecting a quick victory. But instead of facing him directly, Spanish forces used guerrilla tactics, hit-and-run attacks, ambushes, and supply line disruptions. Napoleon's troops were exhausted long before major battles even took place. Lesson: if you can't overpower your enemy, drain them until they collapse. To Muhammad Ali's rope-a-dope strategy. What happened? In the 1974 Rumble in the Jungle, Ali faced George Foreman, the hardest puncher in boxing. Instead of fighting back, Ali let Foreman punch him for 7 rounds. Foreman exhausted himself, and by the 8th round, Ali knocked him out. Lesson: sometimes the best attack is to let your opponent tire themselves out. 3. Sun Tzu's War of Attrition. What did he teach? When your enemy is strong, avoid direct conflict. Stretch their resources, disrupt their supply, and force them to make mistakes. An exhausted enemy is an easy enemy to defeat. Lesson: if you let an enemy burn themselves out, victory is effortless. Why most people fail and how to fix it. The biggest mistake: they attack too soon when the enemy is fresh and prepared. They engage in direct confrontations instead of weakening the opponent first. They forget that fatigue is just as powerful as firepower. But every great strategist knows fatigue makes people reckless. Tired enemies make mistakes. The best way to break an opponent is to drain their energy before striking. How to weaken your opponent before the fight. 1. Force them to chase you. Make your enemy waste time, energy, and resources running after you. Dock out the battle, so they become mentally and physically drained. Example: in business, Apple forces competitors to play catch-up, releasing innovations that make rivals scramble to keep up too. Attack indirectly. Instead of fighting head-on, attack their supply lines, morale, or alliances. Destroy their strength without ever engaging directly. Example: in negotiations, great leaders create delays and frustrations that wear down the other side until they surrender out of exhaustion. 3. Make them overcommit. Lure them into spending too much energy early on. Encourage them to go all in, only to realize they have nothing left for the real battle. Example: in war, generals bait the enemy into launching full attacks, then strike when they are too weak to continue. The war strategy for guaranteed success. 1. Set the trap in motion. Never fight an enemy at full strength, always weaken them first. 2. Keep the pressure on. Force them into exhausting battles that don't benefit them. 3. Strike when they are broken, once they're drained and demoralized. The final attack will be effortless. The key takeaway: the battle should be over before it begins. Never fight an enemy who is at full strength. Make them weak first. Use exhaustion, delays, and pressure to break their will. By the time the real battle begins, your opponent should already be finished. Next strategy preview. Strategy 30. Distract. Divide and conquer. The best strategists don't just defeat enemies, they turn them against each other. The next strategy will show you how to make your opponents destroy themselves. Turn the page. The war continues. Strategy 30. Divide and conquer. Make your enemies fight each other. The easiest way to win a war. Don't fight it yourself, turn your enemies against each other. Why this strategy works? What if you could defeat your enemies without ever lifting a finger? Most people make a crucial mistake. They try to defeat all their enemies at once. They fight battles directly instead of turning enemies against each other. They fail to recognize that division is more powerful than confrontation. But history's greatest strategists knew a divided enemy is a weak enemy. If your opponents are too busy fighting each other, they won't have the strength to fight you. The art of turning enemies against each other. Empires don't fall from the outside, they crumble from within. A team with internal conflicts will never function properly. A leader who sows division can control people without force. Instead of attacking your enemy directly, give them an internal war to fight. Historical masterclass, how the greats used. This strategy won the Roman Empire's secret to domination. What happened? The Romans ruled vast territories with fewer soldiers than their enemies. Instead of fighting everyone at once, they played enemy tribes against each other by turning rivals into enemies. They ensured no unified force could rise against them. Lesson: a house divided cannot stand. If your enemies are too busy fighting each other, they won't fight you. Point to the British divide and rule tactic. What happened? During British colonial rule, they controlled India by turning local rulers and factions against each other. By fueling internal conflicts, the British prevented any strong resistance. Lesson: if your enemy is fractured, they will never unite against you. 3. How business leaders destroy competition. What happened? Tech giants like Google and Apple often fuel competition among smaller companies, ensuring no single rival grows strong enough to challenge them. Corporate leaders encourage rivalry between departments to keep employees focused on internal battles instead of challenging leadership. Lesson: smart leaders don't crush enemies, they make them destroy themselves. Why? Most people fail, and how to fix it. The biggest mistake. They try to fight multiple enemies at once. They attack opponents instead of manipulating them. They don't exploit existing conflicts to weaken their rivals. But every great strategist knows a war between your enemies saves you effort. Once division starts, it spreads like wildfire. You don't need to fight if your enemies destroy each other first on how to turn your enemies against each other. 1. Identify existing tensions. Look for conflicts, rivalries, or hidden resentments within your enemies. Group. Find weaknesses in their alliances. Example: in politics, leaders exploit divisions between different voter groups to weaken their opponents, to plant seeds of doubt, spread subtle rumors and suspicions, make each side believe the other is plotting against them. Example: in corporate battles, companies leak insider information to create paranoia among competitors. 3. Watch the fire spread. Once division starts, let it grow naturally. Fuel both sides just enough to keep them fighting. Example: during war, intelligence agencies spread misinformation to create distrust among enemy factions. The war strategy for guaranteed success. 1. Create internal conflict. Turn alliances into rivalries. To let your enemies weaken themselves. Encourage their fights without getting involved. 3. Strike when they are at their weakest. When the dust settles, take control effortlessly. The key takeaway: let your enemies destroy themselves. You don't need to fight if your enemies are already fighting each other. Use division as a weapon, sow distrust, spread doubt, and fuel internal conflicts. The weaker your enemies become, the easier it is to dominate. Next strategy preview. Strategy 31. Make your opponents doubt themselves. The best strategists don't just weaken enemies, they make them lose faith in their own abilities. The next strategy will show you how to make your opponents second-guess every move. Turn the page. The war continues. Strategy 31. Destroy your enemy's morale. Make them doubt themselves. The most powerful defeat isn't physicalized, psychological. If your enemy loses confidence, they've already lost the war. Why this strategy works? Most people think battles are won through strength. They focus on overpowering the enemy with force. They think victory comes from brute force alone. But here's the truth. The real war is fought in the mind. An enemy who doubts themselves will hesitate, make mistakes, and eventually surrender. You don't need to destroy them physically, just break their confidence. The most effective war strategy is to make your enemy defeat themselves. The science of self-doubt. How the mind crumbles under pressure. Psychologists have proven that self-doubt destroys performance. When people feel uncertain, they make poor decisions. A confident army fights harder. A doubtful army collapses. If you control your opponent's mindset, you control the battle. Historical masterclass. How the greatest warriors used this strategy. 1. Sun Tzu's psychological warfare. What happened? Sun Tzu, the legendary Chinese general, won battles without fighting. He used deception to make enemies question their own strength by planting doubts in the enemy's mind. They often surrendered before the fight even began. Lesson: demoralized. Enemy is already defeated. To Napoleon's mastery of psychological pressure. What happened? Napoleon was often outnumbered but still won. His secret: he made his enemies fear him before the battle started. He spread rumors of his unstoppable force, causing opponents to panic and make mistakes. Lesson: if your enemy fears you more than they trust themselves, you've already won. 3. Business warfare. How Amazon crushes competitors. What happened? Amazon deliberately undercuts small competitors, forcing them to believe they can't survive. Many businesses give up before they're actually defeated. Lesson: make your opponents feel like resistance is useless, and they'll surrender on their own. Why most people fail and how to fix it. The biggest mistake: they attack enemies directly instead of attacking their confidence. They let their opponents stay mentally strong. They don't plant seeds of doubt in their enemies' minds. But every great strategist knows self-doubt is a slow poison. It weakens enemies over time. Once your opponent questions themselves, they will start making fatal mistakes. A weak mind leads to a weak fight. How to make your enemies doubt themselves. 1. Confuse them with contradictory information. Send mixed signals so they don't know what to believe. Make them second guess every decision. Example: in chess, grandmasters sometimes make bad moves to trick opponents into overanalyzing, causing them to self-destruct to create uncertainty about their strength. Make them think they are weaker than they actually are. Spread rumors that their own allies are questioning them. Example: in sports, teams use fake injuries and mind games to make the opponent think they have an advantage, causing overconfidence and mistakes. 3. Destroy their momentum. Interrupt their progress whenever possible. Make them feel like every step forward is a struggle. Example, in war, generals use sudden small attacks to keep the enemy off balance and prevent them from building momentum. The war strategy for guaranteed success: 1. Make your enemy question their own strength. Let them believe they are failing even when they aren't. 2. Use psychological traps to create doubt. Give them false hope. Then take it away. 3. Keep the pressure on until they break. Once doubt takes root, push harder to make them crumble. The key takeaway: break their mind and their body will follow. The real battle isn't on the battlefield, it's in the mind. If you control how your opponent thinks, you control how they fight. Doubt is the ultimate weapon. Use it wisely. Strategy preview. Strategy 32: The art of sudden, expected attacks. The best strategists don't just defend, they strike first. The next strategy will show you how to launch attacks that shock and overwhelm your enemy. Turn the page. The war is not over. Strategy 32: Hit first, hit hard. The art of sudden, unexpected attacks. The best way to win a war: strike before your enemy even knows they're in one. Why this strategy works: most people wait too long to act. They hesitate, overthink, and give their enemies time to prepare. They play defense instead of seizing the offensive. But here's the truth: a well-timed surprise attack can win the battle before it even starts. When people are caught off guard, they panic and make mistakes. Speed, aggression, and unpredictability create an unstoppable advantage. The most powerful warriors don't just react to threats, they eliminate them before they grow. The science of surprise: why it paralyzes your opponent. Psychologists have proven that sudden attacks overwhelm the brain. When people don't expect something, they struggle to respond effectively. An enemy who is shocked is an enemy who is vulnerable. If your opponent is too busy reacting, they can't fight back effectively. Historical masterclass: how the greatest warriors use surprise attacks. 1. Genghis Khan, the master of blitz warfare. What happened? Genghis Khan never waited for his enemies to attack. He launched lightning-fast invasions, catching kingdoms off guard. Before they could organize a defense, he had already won. Lesson: by the time your enemy realizes what's happening, it should already be too late. To the German Blitzkrieg, World War II's deadliest strategy. What happened? In World War II, Germany crushed France in weeks using Blitzkrieg lightning war. They didn't give the enemy time to react. Fast-moving tanks, airstrikes, and surprise attacks overwhelmed defenses before they could mobilize. Lesson: speed. Shock equals instant victory. 3. Business warfare. How Apple crushed the competition. What happened? Apple doesn't wait for trends, it creates them. The iPhone launch shocked the world, leaving competitors scrambling to catch up. While others debated and planned, Apple executed. Lesson: move before the competition even knows what's happening. Why most people fail and how to fix it? The biggest mistake: they wait too long to act. They let their opponents prepare. They focus on reacting instead of attacking first. But every great strategist knows the first mover sets the rules of the game. If you hit first and hard, your enemy never recovers. Hesitation kills. Action wins. How to execute a perfect surprise attack. 1. Strike before your enemy expects it. Act when they assume they're safe. Attack at a time when they are relaxed or distracted. Example, in sports, underdog teams often win by starting aggressively and overwhelming the favorites before they adjust point to move fast and with full force. Once you start, don't slow down. Hit them harder than they can handle. Example, in business. Elon Musk launches bold, aggressive innovations before regulators or competitors can respond. 3. Disrupt their ability to respond. Cut off their communications, resources, or options. Make sure they can't regroup. Example, in war. Surprise attacks often target supply lines first, crippling the enemy's ability to fight back. The war strategy for guaranteed success. 1. Catch your enemy off guard. Choose the perfect moment when they feel most secure. 2. Attack with overwhelming speed and force. Don't give them time to recover or adjust. 3. Keep them off balance until they collapse. Follow up relentlessly to ensure they never regain control. The key takeaway: the first strike wins the fight the longer you wait. The stronger your enemy becomes. Attack before they can prepare, and they'll never recover. Hesitation. Is your worst enemy take action now? Next strategy preview. Strategy 33. The final secret to total victory. The greatest generals don't just win battles, they dominate for life. The next strategy reveals the ultimate secret to maintaining power forever. Turn the page. Victory is within your grasp. Strategy 33. Destroy your enemy completely. Leave no chance for revenge. A. Wounded enemy is the most dangerous enemy. If you strike so hard they can never rise again. Why this strategy works? The biggest mistake in war: leaving an enemy alive to fight another day. Too many warriors stop fighting too soon. They show mercy when it's dangerous. They assume the battle is over when it's only just begun. But history has proven this over and over. An enemy that survives will come back stronger. Given time, they will seek revenge. The only way to guarantee victory is to destroy them completely. Crush them so thoroughly that they can never recover. The psychology of total destruction. A. Defeated enemy still holds resentment. If left alive, they will plot, regroup, and strike back. The only way to neutralize the threat is to remove it entirely. A half victory is a future loss waiting to happen. Historical masterclass. The leaders who knew how to end a war for good. 1. Rome versus Carthage. The ultimate lesson in ruthlessness. What happened? Rome and Carthage fought 3 brutal wars. In the first 2, Rome won but left Carthage standing. Carthage recovered, rebuilt, and fought back stronger each time. In the third war, Rome finally understood. Carthage had to be erased. What did Rome do? They burned the entire city to the ground. They slaughtered or enslaved every survivor. They spread salt over the land so nothing could grow. Lesson: if Rome had done this in the first war, they wouldn't have needed the second. And third, to Genghis Khan, the conqueror who left no threat behind. What happened? When Genghis Khan defeated an enemy, he didn't just win. He eliminated entire bloodlines, cities, and cultures that resisted him. He never gave his enemies a second chance. Result? His empire became the largest in history. No one dared to challenge him twice. Lesson: mercy is a weakness when your enemy is ruthless. Point 3. Corporate warfare. How Netflix killed Blockbuster. What happened? Netflix didn't just beat Blockbuster, they buried them. Instead of competing, it completely changed the game with streaming. They made sure Blockbuster couldn't recover by moving faster and more aggressively. Lesson: when you have the advantage, don't stop until your competition is irrelevant. why most people fail and how to fix it. The biggest mistake. They assume their enemy is too weak to strike back. They believe kindness will be remembered. They stop attacking too soon. But every great strategist knows power is never secure unless all threats are removed. If your enemy is alive, your battle isn't over. You must dominate so completely that resistance is impossible. How to destroy an enemy completely? 1. Remove their ability to retaliate. Take away their resources, power, and influence. Make sure they have nothing left to fight with. Example, in war, generals destroy enemy supply lines first without weapons or food. The enemy collapses. To control the narrative, leave them no hope. Make them believe resistance is pointless, crush their morale. So, they don't even want to fight back. Example, after Napoleon's defeat, his return was only possible because people still believed in him. If his image had been completely destroyed, France wouldn't have welcomed him back. Point 3, set an example. Make others fear resistance. If you let one enemy challenge you, others will follow. Destroying one opponent completely makes future enemies think twice. Example, in business. Amazon crushes smaller competitors so brutally that others are too scared to challenge them. The war. Strategy for unbreakable power. 1. Identify every threat, even the small ones, many great. Leaders have fallen because they ignored small threats to eliminate all resistance. Attack every possible way your enemy could fight back. 3. Make sure they can never return. End. Their ability to regroup, rebuild, or seek revenge. The key takeaway: final victory belongs to the ruthless. A half-destroyed enemy is a future war waiting to happen. Mercy creates future problems. Total dominance eliminates them forever. When you win, make sure it's permanent. This is the last and most important strategy. Master it, and you will never lose again. You now have the ultimate playbook for war, business, and power. The question is, will you use it? The final word: the path to total power. Power is not given. It is taken. Success is not about who is smartest, it's about who is willing to fight hardest. War is everywhere. The battlefield may change, but the rules remain the same. Use these 33 strategies of war, and no one will ever control your fate again. Go forth, conquer, dominate. Conclusion: the warrior's path to ultimate victory. War is the eternal state of life. Those who master it rule. Those who ignore it fall. The battlefield never ends. Every moment of your life, you are in battle. In business, you are fighting for dominance. In relationships, you are battling for influence on life. You are waging war against time, weakness, and failure. The truth: you can't escape war. You can only choose whether to fight strategically or be crushed by those who do. The weak hope for peace. The strong prepare for war. This book has given you 33 of the most powerful war strategies ever created. Each one has been tested by emperors, generals, and ruthless leaders who shaped history. Each one is a weapon, but a weapon is only powerful in the hands of one who knows how to use it. What separates the winners from the forgotten? The greatest warriors do not hesitate. They see the battlefield clearly and strike with precision. They know when to attack and when to retreat. They know how to manipulate, deceive, and dominate. They do not let emotions cloud their judgment. They see every interaction as a battle that must be won. The difference between those who rise and those who fall? The fallen play fair. The victors play to win. Your next move: dominate the game of life. You now hold the ultimate war strategies in your hands. But knowledge alone is worthless. Only action leads to victory. Most people will read this book and do nothing. They will nod their heads, feel inspired, and then return to the battlefield unarmed. They will make the same mistakes, fight the same losing battles, and wonder why others dominate them. But you are different. You are a strategist. You now see what others don't. You now understand the hidden rules of power. You now have the tools to win, if you have the courage to use them. The 3 unbreakable laws of victory. To close this book, let's leave with the 3 ultimate laws of warfare: success and power. If you master these, no opponent will ever stand against you. Law number 1: win before the battle begins. The best warriors don't fight. They position themselves so the fight is already won. Prepare. Outthink and move before your enemy even sees you coming. Example: a master of business builds influence before launching a product. By the time competitors react, he has already won. Law number 2: destroy weakness in yourself first, before you conquer others. Conquer yourself. Eliminate fear, hesitation, and self-doubt. They are your greatest enemies. Example: a true leader never hesitates. He trains himself to be decisive, strategic, and unshakable under pressure. Law number 3: never leave an enemy standing. A half-defeated enemy will always return stronger, and all threats completely leave no room for revenge. Example: great conquerors don't just win battles, they make sure their enemies can never rise again. The final challenge: will you apply these strategies? The weak will read this book and forget it. The average will remember it but never use it. The strong will take action and dominate. Which one will you be? The choice is yours. The battlefield awaits. The war is yours to win. Go forth, conquer, dominate,